Hey guys, tonight we're going way back, like before 2-day shipping was even a dream back. You probably had a package delayed a few days before and thought, ugh, the system is broken. But imagine living in the 1200s and expecting a handwritten message sent by a guy on a horse through mountains, deserts, possibly a blizzard, and he still beats modern delivery times. Yeah. Tonight's story is about that. We're diving into the Mongolian postal system, a masterpiece of communication built by Genghis Khan himself, centuries before FedEx had branding or Amazon had drones. You're about to ride through the dusty trails of history, following hoofbeats that echo across continents. Spoiler, you probably wouldn't survive one leg of the journey. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment telling me where you're listening from and what time it is. I bet it's 3 a.m., isn't it? Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You are walking alone, just as the moon begins to pull itself up from behind a ridge of rocky hills. There's nothing around you but coarse wind and the smell of smoke, wood smoke, faintly sweet, and something else, the warmth of goat milk simmering in a pot. The fire ahead is small, flickering weakly in the breeze, but around it sits a figure hunched beneath heavy furs. He doesn't look up. You sit beside him. The heat of the fire tickles your face like the breath of a sleeping dog. You're not sure if you're dreaming or if this is just one of those strange moments where time folds in on itself like parchment in a forgotten drawer. The man finally speaks. His voice is dry as dust, but steady. You want to know how the Khan sent letters? No introduction. No name, just that. You nod, though he hasn't looked at you. Somewhere in the darkness, a horse shifts, its reins jangling like wind chimes. The stars above seem very, very close. It started with a promise, he says. A promise made not to gods or kings, but to silence. Silence that spread across the steppes, across deserts, across mountains. Genghis Khan hated silence. You blink. This doesn't sound like the version of Genghis they teach in school, the terrifying conqueror. But maybe that's the point. He gestures to the flame as if it will do the explaining. You lean in. The wind whispers. Long before Pony Express, long before even the Silk Road was properly guarded, Genghis Khan saw something no one else saw. The empire wasn't just land, it was connection. He realized that controlling territory wasn't enough. He had to control the space between people. And so from this obsession was born the yam. Not a root vegetable, by the way. The yam was the beating heart of Mongolian communication, an early postal relay system so vast and weirdly efficient, it made everything Europe had at the time look like a game of telephone played by people with earplugs. You picture it. Relay stations, every 25 to 30 miles across an empire that stretched farther than any single government had ever held before. Each station had food, shelter, spare horses, and a few surly-looking staff who made sure the next guy didn't fall asleep on the job. Messages, royal decrees, troop movements, even birthday letters, probably, were handed off from rider to rider, non-stop, day and night. And here's the kicker. The couriers were often so fast that modern military logistics experts still scratch their heads. Like, how did they do that? The man by the fire smiles faintly, sensing your disbelief. Each man had a paisa, he says, a medallion of authority. With it, he could demand shelter, food, horses, even the law stepped aside. You imagine holding this paisa, a small piece of metal but heavy with authority. It wasn't just a badge, it was a golden ticket to move like lightning across a continent. And woe to anyone who stood in the way. According to some scrolls, possibly embroidered with horsehair, possibly not, any delay to a courier with a paisa was a crime, sometimes punishable by death. Now, this sounds efficient. Terrifying, but efficient. The man shifts, poking at the fire. Sparks leap up like fireflies, dancing briefly before they vanish. But not everything went as planned, he mutters. You'll see. You pause, noting how his tone darkens, but he doesn't explain. You'll come back to that. You ask about the horses. How did they keep up that speed? Ah, the Mongolian horse. Small, shaggy, surprisingly cute. Not exactly the majestic stallions of medieval Europe, but these things were tanks. They could gallop for hours, eat frozen grass without complaint, and get this, knew their way home even after being released in the wild, like fuzzy GPS-enabled tanks. Each station had fresh horses waiting, so the courier didn't have to slow down. He'd ride in, toss the reins, leap onto another horse, and ride off again. In some records, the same message could cross 200 to 300 miles in a single day. And this was in a world where crossing your own city might take half of it. Some say they moved faster than shadows, the man adds. Others said they disappeared altogether. You laugh. That sounds dramatic. But in this moonlit world, you're not sure what's real anymore. The fire crackles, and for a moment, it sounds like distant hooves. There's another part of the system you begin to imagine. The runners. Not every message went by horse. Sometimes, especially in mountainous terrain, it was sent on foot. These messengers trained their whole lives. They could run dozens of miles without rest, carrying messages stitched into their clothing or hidden in hollowed-out beads or inked inside their sleeves. One famous courier, whose name is lost to history because historians, in true historian fashion, disagree on who he was, allegedly ran 70 miles through snow to deliver a single line of poetry, and he did it for love or taxes. Or taxes. Again, historians argue. The man next to you stretches his legs. He glances sideways, eyes glinting. The system worked because people believed in it, he says. Fear, duty, magic. Who can say? You wonder if it could work today. Could such a vast, delicate system survive modern bureaucracy? Would anyone dare gallop across a border now, waving a medallion and demanding a sandwich? The fire burns lower. The stars are sharper now. The night grows quieter. It began with a promise, the man says again. And you, like everyone else, will have to decide what that promise meant. The wind tugs at your collar. Somewhere in the distance, a horse whinnies softly, as if it too remembers something ancient. And just like that, the world shifts again. You blink, you're no longer beside the fire, you're on horseback now, the reins in your hands, a leather satchel pressed against your side. The message inside, you don't know yet, but it's urgent. You can feel it. Your horse stamps the ground. Ahead of you, the path winds toward a faint light, maybe the next station, maybe not. You lean forward, and you ride. The cold hits first, not as a gust, but as a creeping blanket wrapping around your fingers, your ears, the tip of your nose. You're still on horseback, and you begin to realize, this isn't a dream. Or if it is, your brain is alarmingly good at simulating frostbite. Sky above you is smeared in dusty lavender, with the last remnants of twilight pulling back like old curtains. Your horse exhales a puff of steam, and you shift slightly in the saddle. Your thighs are already sore, but that doesn't matter. The message has to move. Ahead, the road vanishes into nothing, swallowed by wind-swept plains. There's no GPS, no road signs, not even a helpful chirpy voice saying, turn left in 500 steps. You rely on memory, instinct, and the stars, exactly as the Mongol couriers once did. You begin to understand something subtle, something often left out of textbooks. The Mongolian Empire wasn't just good at war, it was terrifyingly, obsessively good at logistics. Genghis Khan's real weapon wasn't just the bow or the horse, it was organization, a kind of ancient bureaucratic magic that could move armies and ideas with breathtaking speed. You tighten your grip on the reins. The station should be just over the rise. Now let's pause just a little to remember how bare bones the world was back then. This was the 13th century. In Europe, most kings couldn't even get a clean pair of socks sent across the city without misplacing the messenger. Meanwhile, Mongol couriers were sprinting across Eurasia like caffeinated ninjas. The system they used? The yam. Not a typo. No, it's not a sweet potato. Though, honestly, some of those couriers probably would have killed for a roasted yam. The yam, which in Mongolian roughly translates to checkpoint or relay, was a dazzlingly simple concept, executed with terrifying thoroughness. Every 25 to 30 miles, there was a station. At that station, a fresh horse, food, shelter, and grumpy but efficient staff who could change a saddle in under a minute. You rode in, shouted your credentials, swapped horses, and galloped away. No waiting, no signature required, no holding music. Some sources claim these stations existed every 30 miles for 30,000 miles. That's like having a Starbucks every block across a continent. Though these places had more fermented mare's milk and less whipped cream. And here's the twist. You didn't even need to be Mongolian to use it. Yes, you heard me. Genghis Khan, for all his wrath and world domination energy, was weirdly egalitarian about information. Ambassadors, merchants, scholars, and even foreign spies, if they were clever enough, could sometimes gain access to the yam. All they needed was one magical object. The Paisa. Think of the Paisa as a VIP access badge meets ancient Uber Pass, a small, often metallic tablet, oval, round, or rectangular, engraved with permission from the Khan himself. It told every station master along the way, this person is not to be messed with. Feed them, house them, give them horses, or else. And by or else, I mean possibly executed. The Mongols didn't believe in customer service surveys. They believed in consequences. You reach the crest of a hill, and there it is, the glow of a small fire, a low building, and a pen of shuffling horses. A relay station. You dismount. Your knees wobble like boiled noodles. The station master appears at the door. His hair is mostly frost, and he eyes your satchel. Paisa, he grunts. You flash the medallion, and in less than a minute, he's ushering you in, swapping your mount, handing you a bowl of something that smells like cheese and sorrow. You gulp it down anyway. Your ride resumes before your legs even stop trembling. You're probably wondering, how fast was this whole operation? Well, let me paint the scene. Imagine a message leaving Karakoram, the capital of the Mongol Empire, deep in the Central Asian steppe and reaching the edge of the Black Sea. That's about 4,500 kilometers. In modern times, you could mail that via airmail and expect it to take maybe 5 days if the postal gods are smiling. The Mongols, 12 to 14 days, on horseback, with relays, no engines, no satellites, no express priority flat rate envelopes, just grit, hooves, and brutal discipline. Now for the weird part, and you knew it was coming. See, the yam wasn't just fast, it was weirdly secure. Some messages were written in Mongolian, yes, but others were encoded using silk knots, colored strings, or even tattoos hidden beneath clothing. A few historians believe that some couriers actually memorized the entire message word for word, burned the paper, and recited it later from memory, like human flash drives with questionable diets. And here's a fact you probably didn't expect. The system ran not just during peacetime, but during war. While battles raged, the mail still ran. Think about that next time your package is delayed due to inclement weather. The fire in the relay station flickers in your memory. You can still feel the sting of wind on your cheeks, the aching in your thighs, the rhythm of hooves thudding like a heartbeat. The man from the previous night said, "You'll see." And now you do. This was no ordinary courier system. This was an empire's nervous system, sending commands, reassurances, and sometimes whispered poetry through a web of riders, goatskin satchels, and watchful stars. But it wasn't perfect. The man had hinted as much. You'll find out more soon how even the fastest message can cause disaster when misunderstood, and how a single misplaced scroll led to one of history's weirdest diplomatic breakdowns. But for now, you're still on the road. The next station lies ahead. Your new horse is twitchy, young, eager, just like the system itself in its early days. You whisper the next few words of your message to yourself, just in case. You pat the horse's neck, the wind shifts, and you ride. The terrain shifts beneath your horse's hooves. Less grass, more gravel, the wind sharper now, slicing across the skin like a blade that's forgotten how to be polite. You tug your cloak tighter. The stars above are scattered like spilled salt, and somewhere to the east, a pale orange haze hints at dawn. You've been riding for hours, and yet time feels suspended. The air smells like damp leather and something faintly metallic, iron, maybe, or the memory of blood in the dirt. Your mount snorts, sensing the incline. Ahead, the road twists into the foothills. This stretch is known as the Ghost Route. You weren't warned, not really. Just a passing mention from the last station master said too casually, "Some couriers hear voices up there. Don't listen too closely." Classic. Very comforting. As your horse begins the slow climb, the story continues, not just of your journey, but of how this monstrous machine of message moving came to exist in the first place. Because make no mistake, the yam didn't just appear out of thin air. It was the result of obsession, not brilliance, not kindness, just cold, calculating obsession. And that obsession belonged to Genghis Khan. Now, you've probably heard a few things about Genghis. Most of them involve blood, fire, and general, "oops, he conquered my village" energy. But what often gets ignored is this. He didn't just want to rule, he wanted to know everything. When he was still just Temujin, a minor tribal leader scraping together alliances and surviving betrayal after betrayal, he learned a hard truth. The side with more information wins, every time. The army that knows where the enemy is, that's the one that walks away. So once he had enough power, Genghis Khan didn't just build armies. He built networks. He set up spies, scouts, code systems, maps, and most importantly, speed. He didn't care about paperwork. He cared about results. If a message needed to reach a general 2 days away, it got there in one. That wasn't a suggestion. That was a command. So the yam became more than mail. It became lifeblood, and it wasn't optional. You ride deeper into the hills now. The silence is thicker. Your horse's hooves clack against stones in patterns that almost sound like speech. You find yourself repeating the message you carry, not because you have to, but because it makes you feel anchored. To the commander of the eastern flank, hold position. Reinforcements arrive in 7 days. It's short, unremarkable, but you know better than to underestimate the weight of a simple order. Wars have been won with less. You think of a particular courier whose name has vanished from history. He was once tasked with delivering a single command: withdraw immediately. He made it in half the expected time. The retreat he triggered saved over 10,000 men from ambush. No statue for him, no holiday, just a story whispered in tents and around fires like this one. But not all messages saved lives. There was a day, cold, wet, and thick with mist, when a courier misread a single symbol. In the ancient Mongolian script, one brushstroke changed advance into retreat. The order was followed. An entire detachment abandoned their position on a mountain pass in present-day Georgia. The enemy took it before dawn. The battle was lost. Some say the courier was flayed alive. Others say he disappeared, last seen in the highlands, muttering the message to himself over and over. Advance. Retreat. Advance. Retreat. The historians still argue about the details. They always do. You shake the image from your head. The mountain winds are stronger now, cutting through your coat and curling into your ears like whispering ghosts. You glance over your shoulder, half expecting something to be following. But it's just you and the message. The relay station on this route is notoriously difficult to spot. Built partially into the mountain, it's disguised to look like rock from the trail, a precaution against raiders and the occasional overly curious traveler. According to the notes you memorized, there should be a marker, a stack of 3 stones, one chipped on the left side. You ride for eyes scanning, then you see it. You pull your horse to a stop and slide off, knees buckling briefly as the blood rushes back to your legs. You walk toward the stones and knock 3 times on the larger boulder beside it. A hidden latch, a creaking door, and warm air scented with pine and horse sweat brushes against your face. The station master here is younger than the last. His hair is dark, slicked back with something pungent. He doesn't speak, just gestures to the corner where a clean blanket and a bowl of millet soup await. You sit, you eat, you breathe. While you rest, let me tell you a strange little footnote. There was once a courier who refused to sleep at any station. Not once. He believed rest weakened the message, that by closing his eyes he was letting the words drift out, scatter into the wind. So he rode without pause, without sleep, until one day they found him slumped in the saddle, dead from exhaustion, still upright. The horse had walked him 90 miles past the intended station, loyal to the end. The message was still in his hand. That same message, later copied by a scribe in Samarkand, changed the path of a royal marriage, because the bride-to-be read it, smiled, and said yes. Life, love, and history, all bound up in one man's refusal to nap. You stand now, stretch. The next horse is smaller, but sturdier. You swing into the saddle, the mountain trail narrows. You'll need to ride carefully, but the air is lighter here, cleaner somehow. A hawk circles overhead, then veers off. Good omen, maybe. Behind you, the station disappears into stone. Ahead of you, the path forks. Left leads toward the capital, right leads deeper into the unknown. You don't hesitate. You ride. The trail twists like a lazy snake, curling through the ribs of the mountains. You guide your horse carefully, each step sending tiny stones skittering down the edge, falling into a gorge so deep it might as well be the other side of the world. Your breath is visible now, puffing from your mouth in slow clouds. The silence here is absolute, broken only by the steady rhythm of hooves and the occasional dramatic sigh from your mount, who clearly thinks this assignment is above his pay grade. You're alone up here. Truly, breathtakingly alone. And that's exactly how the Mongols liked it. One of the lesser-known secrets of the Yam system is its intentional invisibility. You see, while the rest of the world was building castles and yelling about heraldry and painting lions on shields, the Mongols were quietly building roads that could vanish. The message network wasn't marked by signs or flags. It was encoded in memory, passed orally among trusted couriers and station masters. If you weren't part of the system, you couldn't even find it. It was a web. Yes, but one spun in shadow. This gave the empire an edge no one else had. When European powers wanted to move information, they had to clear forests, build roads, pay tolls. The Mongols, they just needed one guy who knew which rock looked like a horse's ear and where to turn left at the stream shaped like a snake. You reach a plateau, the wind eases up here, but the cold doesn't. The sun begins its slow climb behind you, casting thin gold fingers across the snow-dusted rocks. You stop for a moment, not for rest, but to listen, not to the wind, not to your thoughts, to the faint sound of drums. Drums? You dismount, straining to hear. Yes, a deep, slow beat. Regular. Hollow. It's not war. Not yet. It's the rhythm of relay communication. Some stations, especially those in mountainous regions where visibility was low and weather unforgiving, used signal drums to announce a courier's approach. Each station had its own rhythm, its own knock. You're hearing yours now. Being relayed ahead. Thud, pause, thud, thud, thud. You smile. It feels like being expected, like someone's already warmed a blanket for you. And this brings us to something both delightful and a little absurd. The comfort rating of these ancient stations. Believe it or not, Mongol relay posts weren't just functional, they were graded. Some were Spartan, a roof, a fire, maybe a grumpy goat. Others, especially those near important trade routes or imperial road, had full amenities. Beds with thick felt, stews made with wild herbs, fermented mare's milk chilled in stone jars. Yes, you heard that right. The Uber Eats of the 13th century might greet you with a steaming bowl of bone broth, seasoned with saffron if you were lucky, or just boiled yak leg if you weren't. And it wasn't just food. Messages could be repaired here, rewritten, or duplicated by scribes. Some couriers even had their own station reputations, where they'd request a specific soup or the warmest bedroll. One was known for demanding precisely 3 boiled eggs and 1 lullaby before continuing. That courier was, apparently, terrifyingly effective. Your current station doesn't look luxurious, more like a stack of half-buried rocks than a postal hub. But as you approach, the wooden door swings open without a knock. The station keeper is an older woman. Her hair is braided tightly, silver threads woven through the black like frost in nightgrass. She doesn't smile, but she nods, and that's enough. She doesn't ask for your name. She looks at your horse, sees the sweat, the strain, the distance, and says simply, "Northbound, 2 days ahead of schedule." How does she know? You don't ask. You hand her the leather tube holding the message. She glances at the seal, doesn't break it, and gestures to a young man who brings a new horse. You're fed, watered, and resupplied before you even finish exhaling. Then, without ceremony, you're back on the path. Let's pause here while your horse adjusts to your weight. Because this part of the story is where the Yam becomes almost supernatural. See, historians still argue, they do that a lot, have you noticed, about how such a system was maintained across such a ridiculous scale. We're talking over 130,000 miles of relay routes, more than 5 times the length of the Great Wall. With over 1,100 relay stations and more than 50,000 horses dedicated solely to communication. There were bureaucrats managing station supplies, timing courier shifts, feeding animals, even scheduling seasonal changes en route due to floods or snow. It was like ancient FedEx, but without email, electricity, or anyone getting paid in stock options. And it worked. Some say Genghis Khan demanded reports from every corner of his empire every month. That's like asking someone to walk from New York to LA every few weeks with a handwritten grocery list. And people did it. They had no choice, but more importantly, they believed in the system. That's the part people forget. The Yam wasn't just horses and leather and dusty paths, it was trust. Blind, terrifying trust. The trail narrows again, winding through trees this time. Pines, sharp and tall. You let the horse pick its pace. You notice tracks. Another courier came through here recently. You wonder who they were, what message they carried. A wedding? A threat? A poem? Once, a scribe in the western provinces hid a love letter inside a military dispatch. When discovered, the rider was punished, not for the message, but for the added weight. Imagine that. Not the romantic betrayal, but the crime of slowing down the message. The Mongols didn't fear lies. They feared delay. You clear the forest line. The land spreads before you, wide and flat again. In the distance, smoke. A settlement, maybe, or just the next station. But you're not tired yet. Not even close. You shift in the saddle and you ride. The land ahead opens like a scroll. Flat, golden, and endless. Grass whispers beneath your horse's hooves, swaying in the breeze like an ocean frozen midwave. The sky is enormous, unbroken, bluer than any ink you've seen. There's something about this place that makes you feel very small, and somehow that's comforting. Like you're just one beat in a much larger rhythm. Your horse breathes steady now, no longer twitchy from the mountain path. You're moving fast again, wind peeling across your face, and it's here, in the great expanse of the steppe, that the true genius of the Mongol communication system starts to show itself. Because while you're galloping across this sea of grass, you begin to realize something. There are no roads, no signposts, no lanterns, no helpful grandma yelling, "Take a left," after the large rock shaped like a goat. Just instinct, memory, and precision, like flying an invisible airline with nothing but your gut and a half-glimpsed star to guide you. And yet, you never feel lost. That's the yam. Let's talk about the design of this wild wireless network. Most of the world's empires, Rome, Persia, even early China, built physical roads to carry messages. Logical, yes. Effective, yes, but vulnerable. Genghis Khan looked at roads and thought, too obvious. Instead, he built riders. Riders who became the road, flexible, smart, tough, and mobile. The network existed not in stone, but in muscle memory, oral knowledge, and logistical whispers. You were expected to know the route, and if you didn't, you learned fast, or disappeared. So how did couriers navigate hundreds of miles without markers? They memorized the land like a song. There was even a word for this, delgerek, to become wide, to expand. It wasn't just about knowing the path. It was about feeling it. You learned every bend of the river, every patch of white grass, the way the wind shifted just before dawn. The land itself became your map. Some riders trained from childhood. Their parents, former couriers, or station keepers would send them out with a riddle and a horse. Find the station where the poplars lean south and the dogs have no tails. If the kid returned, they were ready. If not, well, you look to your right. In the distance, you spot the glint of water, probably a river, though here it's hard to tell whether you're seeing a stream or just a mirage reflected off sunburned grass. Your horse begins to pull toward it slightly, sensing the station before you do. And that's the other secret. The horses knew. They were rotated regularly, yes, but some horses, especially the senior ones, yes, senior horses were a thing, had been doing the route for years. Some couriers claimed the horses could find the next station even in total darkness. It sounds absurd, like something a drunk historian made up after 3 bowls of kumis, but it checks out. Mongolian horses were small but mighty. They were free-ranged most of the year and practically raised by the land itself. Their instincts were borderline psychic. One courier, legend has it, fell asleep in the saddle from sheer exhaustion. The horse brought him all the way to the next station, nudged the door with its nose, and stood there until someone opened it. The courier woke up to soup and a blanket. Even Amazon doesn't do that. You crest a low hill, and there it is, the next relay post, camouflaged in golden grass. It's built low like the land itself, with walls of packed mud and straw, reinforced with timber from some long-forgotten forest. Smoke rises from a back chimney. Someone's cooking. You dismount, stretch your legs. The pain hits you in delayed waves, thighs, back, wrists. Your body is beginning to understand the price of speed. A boy greets you this time, maybe 15. His hands are calloused, his eyes sharp. He takes your horse without a word, nods to your satchel. You hand it off like a sacred object. Inside, the message is still sealed. You've carried it across wind and mountain, through ghost roads and drum echoes, and somehow it still feels quiet, as if it's waiting. You sit beneath an awning. The air smells of roasted grain and something sweet, dried berries maybe. You close your eyes for a moment just to breathe, not to sleep. That's not allowed yet. This post is quiet. Only one other courier rests here, an older man sharpening a dagger with a look that suggests he's done this for longer than you've been alive. He doesn't talk, just nods once, the kind of nod that says you're still in one piece. That's impressive. You nod back. Then the boy returns with your new horse, taller, broader in the chest, a distance runner. He hands you a pouch of dried meat, a skin of water, and something wrapped in oiled cloth. You unwrap it. Not yours. A second message, this one marked with the double seal, urgent seal. Now you're not just a courier. You're a relay yourself. This happens sometimes. A rider en route would be trusted to carry more than they arrived with. If you proved yourself quick, reliable, and sharp-eyed, you became part of the web itself, used to reroute information mid-journey. You tuck the second message against your ribs, tie it close with leather. You feel the shift immediately. The weight is small, but the burden is heavy. The older courier stands, walks to the door. As he passes you, he says one thing, voice like gravel. Don't drop it. You mount. The land yawns ahead once more, and you, now a little more than you were, dig in your heels. And you ride. The wind changes as you ride. It's subtle at first, a shift in temperature, a new scent riding its edge. Gone is the dry, sun-warmed grass of the steppe. Now the air carries a cool dampness, like whetstone and moss, and something older still, the scent of river country. Your horse senses it too. The pace slows slightly, not from fatigue, but from caution. These lands are tricky, flat enough to deceive you, soft enough to eat your footing whole. One wrong step and you're not galloping, you're sinking. Welcome to the wetlands. Not quite swamp, not quite plain. This zone marks the borderlands between what the Mongols called easy speed and necessary suffering. And yet, the yam crossed even here. Because nothing, not mountains, not swamps, not even reason, stood in the way of the message. You lean forward in the saddle as the horse picks its path more carefully. In the distance, you can see patches of mist floating above the earth like ghosts that forgot which way was up. Somewhere far off, a crane lets out a sharp cry, startling in the stillness. Your hands check the satchels again. 2 messages now. One personal, one sealed by double authority. The second one feels like it hums. Of course it doesn't. That's ridiculous. Paper doesn't hum. Still. You ride with the focus of someone carrying more than just ink. Because in this world, a message isn't just a message. It's a command, a promise, a declaration of war, or a kiss that travels 700 miles with a wax seal and shaky penmanship. And the Mongols understood that better than anyone. Let's talk logistics again, because here's where things get very interesting. See, in these harder terrains, wetlands, mountains, frozen tundra, the Mongols had to adapt their relay system. A fast horse was useless if it drowned in a bog. So instead, they employed regional couriers, riders who were born in the local environment, who knew every muddy patch and hidden crossing like the back of their dirt-crusted hands. These weren't empire-wide speed demons. These were local legends. And here's the twist. Some of them didn't ride horses at all. In the marshlands of what is now southern Russia, a few couriers were known to use wooden rafts strapped together with yak hide and reeds. Others used short-legged ponies bred for bog terrain. One particular station was famous for using trained deer, not fast, but near silent, perfect for stealth runs in enemy-infested territory. You imagine yourself on the back of a deer, creeping through moonlit fog with an imperial message under your coat. You'd laugh if you weren't currently riding on a narrow strip of land that seems to be shrinking under your horse's hooves. The relay station here is harder to spot. Unlike the stone-walled posts in the highlands or the felt-roofed yurts of the open steppe, this one is built into a mound of grass and mud, nearly indistinguishable from the landscape. Camouflage wasn't a trend back then. It was necessary. Raiding was common, especially in border zones. If enemy forces couldn't stop the Mongol armies, they at least tried to stop their messages. Capturing or killing couriers was a way to slow the empire down, even if only for a day. But Genghis Khan had prepared for that too. Every courier carried 2 identical messages, one sealed, the other hidden, sometimes sewn into the lining of a coat, sometimes written in code onto scraps of silk that looked like handkerchiefs. Some, wait for it, tattooed onto their arms, using temporary ink. Yes, really. One particularly zealous courier had the message inked across his chest and rode shirtless for 2 days to ensure it dried. He was caught by raiders, interrogated, beaten, and stripped. They saw the tattoo, laughed, thought it was decorative. They let him go. He made it to the station, washed off the message, and wrote it down again. Historians still argue about whether that actually happened. Some call it legend. Others swear it was recorded in the imperial archives. But like so many things in Mongol history, the line between myth and paperwork is very, very blurry. You finally spot the station, just a wooden slat poking up from the earth like a crooked tooth. You dismount, squelch through mud that immediately regrets your presence, and tap a rhythm on the door. 3 short, 2 long. The door opens. You're greeted not by a person, but by a smell. Smoke, boiled herbs, and something deeply fried. Someone is cooking. Loudly. The station keeper is a wiry woman in her 30s with calluses where her eyebrows should be. She looks you up and down like she's deciding whether you're real. Then, late? You shake your head. Good. Sit. You do, mostly because your knees are now arguing with your willpower. She tosses you a warm cloth to wipe your hands, then a chunk of fried dough, then a bowl of tea that smells like pine and iron and butter and fear. While you eat, she doesn't speak. She repairs your satchel, rewraps the second message, reseals your boots with some kind of fish oil concoction that smells like betrayal but works like magic. Then she says, "You got double." You nod. Her voice lowers. "North route's closed. You go river." You blink. River? She gestures outside to a narrow, fast-moving stream you hadn't noticed before. Barely wider than a canoe, but deep. The kind of deep that doesn't ask questions. It just swallows. You ride the bank. 4 markers. 5th is ferry. You start to speak. She interrupts. "Go before the fog. Don't stop. Not once." You thank her. She doesn't respond, just waves you off like a mother waving at a child going to school through a battlefield. Back in the saddle, you angle your horse east. The river is to your left, slippery and loud. It laughs in your ear like it knows how often couriers fall in. The message taps against your ribs. You count the markers as you ride. 1, a branch tied with red thread. 2, a broken fence post sticking out of the mud. 3, a pile of rocks that might be natural or might not. 4, a banner flapping in the wind, its symbols half erased by rain. You don't see the 5th, not at first. Then it rises from the mist, a raft tied to a dead tree, waiting. A man waits beside it, cloaked in black, chewing a reed. He nods once, says nothing. And you ride down toward the river. The raft rocks gently in the water, tied to a gnarled tree with bark like burned silk. The man waiting beside it doesn't speak, doesn't blink. He just watches you approach with the patient stare of someone who's seen one too many riders come and go. You hesitate. Not because of fear. Not exactly. It's the quiet. It's too quiet here. The kind of quiet that presses into your ears like the world is holding its breath. Even your horse, usually full of restless energy, steps lighter like it knows this crossing isn't ordinary. The river isn't wide, maybe 15 feet, but the current is fast and glassy, moving like a ribbon pulled tight across the earth. If you dropped a feather into it, it would vanish before it kissed the water. You dismount. The man gestures wordlessly to the raft. You lead your horse on, trying not to flinch as the raft dips under your combined weight. The wood is slick, darkened from years of moisture and use. A thick pole is wedged under the floorboards, your ferryman's tool. He unties the rope, pushes off, and just like that, you're drifting across. No sound but the water. No birds, no wind, just the hush of movement and the dull thump of your own heartbeat. This isn't a station. It's not even a checkpoint. It's a threshold. And you remember now, there were stories about this crossing. They called it the line that swallowed messages. Back in the early years of the Yam, this river wasn't crossed by raft. Couriers swam it, naked sometimes, tying the message inside oiled cloth and biting it between their teeth. More than one drowned, but the ones who made it were honored. One was given a new saddle made of silver. Another, a paisa stamped with the imperial crest, and a phrase that loosely translated to, "Let this rider pass, or let death pass you instead." But most weren't remembered. The river remembered them, though. Always does. You grip your satchel tighter, halfway across now. The raft shudders beneath your feet. Your horse shifts nervously. The ferryman finally speaks. Just one word. Storm. You glance at the sky. It's clear. For now. But you don't ask questions. You just nod. You've been riding long enough to understand the rhythm of things. And in the Yam, the weather doesn't ask for permission. You make it across without incident, though your palms ache from gripping the ropes too hard. Once ashore, you remount. The ferryman is already pushing off again before you're even settled. You consider calling thanks, but don't. It doesn't feel right, somehow. Some jobs in this world are done without applause. Ahead, the land changes again. No longer grassland, no longer wetland. This is brush country. Scrubby trees, thorny undergrowth, dry air buzzing with insects, and that subtle crackle of distant tension. These are ambush lands, and the Yam knew it, which is why couriers in regions like this carried something extra. Not a weapon, not a disguise, but a token. A small charm. A piece of bone or wood carved with the mark of a local clan or elder. Not official, not even permitted by the empire, technically, but respected. These tokens said, "This rider is known. Let them pass." Because while the Mongol Empire was vast, it wasn't homogeneous. Local politics still mattered. And in Thorn Country, a messenger's paisa might not save them, but a carved wolf's tooth from a respected chieftain? That might just let them keep riding. You reach into your pouch. Sure enough, tucked beside your dried meat and water skin is a token. A flat piece of horn, polished, etched with a spiral. You tie it to your belt where it can be seen. Because out here, visibility is protection. You ride faster now, the trail narrowing between thorny scrub and low trees. Branches scrape at your sleeves. Somewhere behind you, a bird cries out once, then goes silent. Too silent. You don't stop. Even when you catch movement out of the corner of your eye, low, quick, vanishing between shadows. You don't stop. You ride. A mile later, you pass a pile of stones. Fresh. Deliberately stacked. You remember the code. 3 stones equals watching. The Yam used symbols like this. Messages embedded in the landscape, warnings left by couriers for those who followed. It wasn't paranoia, it was protocol. And the most important rule of Thorn Country? If you feel watched, you are. So you don't slow down. Not until the sun is a coin pressed low in the sky and you reach the bend in the trail marked by 2 dead trees forming an X. The next relay station. This one is more hidden than most. Built into a hollow, nearly underground. You have to knock twice, pause, then once more. The door opens, not with a creak, but with a low sliding sigh like the building itself is reluctant to be seen. Inside, it's dim. A single oil lamp. 2 people. One is a young man eating something from a bowl. The other is a woman with a scar running down her chin, seated beside a map so faded it looks tattooed into the wall. She stands, eyes sweeping you over. "Double message?" she asks. You nod. She opens her hand. You place the second tube into her palm. She weighs it for a moment, then slips it into a compartment beneath the floorboards. You say nothing. Some messages don't keep riding. Some get buried. She feeds you quickly. Dried roots, pickled onion, sour milk. You're out the door before your bones settle into rest. The sun is gone now, but the light isn't. The moon is up, huge and yellow, low on the horizon like a guardian waiting to ask what secrets you carry. You don't answer. You just ride. Moonlight spills across the trail like milk poured by an unsteady hand. Your horse moves in near silence now, hooves brushing against dry soil and occasional stone. The world feels thinner at night, doesn't it? Like the distance between you and the past gets just a little shorter. You could almost imagine that someone from 800 years ago is riding beside you. Maybe they are. Or maybe that's just the wind. You pass a broken cart, half buried in the sand and weeds, its wheels long surrendered to rust. Not uncommon. This route, though rarely used by traders anymore, still wears the scars of those who tried and failed to move goods as fast as the Mongols moved information. Merchants could afford to be late. Couriers? Never. Tonight is cold but not sharp, the kind of chill that sneaks under your cloak and settles behind your knees, quietly reminding you that dawn is still hours away. Your message presses against your side, and though you've grown used to the weight of it, you never quite forget it's there. The truth is, you're not the only one moving tonight. That's the reality of the Yam. Someone is always riding. At any given moment in the empire, sunlight over Bukhara, snow in Novgorod, sandstorms in Persia, there are dozens, maybe hundreds of riders galloping through darkness, crossing rivers, whispering passphrases at hidden doors. Some carry imperial edicts, some carry maps, some carry death warrants written in beautiful curling script, and a few carry lies. You've heard of the false riders. They look like couriers, dressed the part, even carried forged paisa. Some so accurate, they fooled station keepers for weeks. These imposters use the yam to spread misinformation, to sabotage battle plans, or worse, to steal the Empire's own messages and reverse them. One infamous incident involved a letter meant for a Mongol general, advance at dawn, that was intercepted and altered to hold position until nightfall. The courier was never found, but the delay cost the Mongols a key fortress near the Caspian Sea. The story ends in fire and retreat. Ever since, station keepers were trained to look for tiny tells, slightly wrong dialect, the smell of the wrong ink, or a horse that sweated in the wrong pattern. Yes, even the sweat was scrutinized. The woman at your last station had sniffed your mount like she was checking a bottle of wine. You passed. Lucky you. Ahead, the trail splits. No signs, of course, just the memory of a map you studied under a flickering lamp 2 nights ago. Left leads to the open route. Flat, fast, and likely watched. Right curves inland, through a narrow gorge called Wolves' Teeth. You'd love to say that's a metaphor. It's not. The pass is named for the rock formations. Sure, sharp, jagged spires that rise from the canyon walls like broken fangs. But also because this area once had the highest concentration of actual wolf attacks on record for any yam route. One courier famously fought off 2 wolves using only a boot, a belt buckle, and what must have been either raw courage or complete insanity. When asked what he'd been delivering, he just shrugged and said, "A recipe." No one ever found out if he was serious, but his boots are in a museum somewhere. You turn right, not because you like wolves, but because you trust the rule every experienced courier learns early. If the road is easy, it's probably wrong. Your horse doesn't argue. Good horse. The trail narrows quickly. The canyon walls close in. You feel the temperature drop by at least 5 degrees in the span of 10 minutes. The moon disappears behind rock. You light a small lamp, hooded just enough to see by. The shadows cling to you like old regrets. Then you hear it. Not a howl, thank the sky, but something softer. A scraping sound like claws on stone. You pause. You listen. Then it stops. You ride on. Halfway through the pass, you find it. A hidden relay post carved straight into the cliff. There's no door, no fire, no signs. Just a jagged gap in the wall that opens into darkness. You dismount, lead your horse inside. The air changes immediately. Warmer, still heavy with the scent of wax and stone. This station is old, ancient maybe, built when the yam was still being invented, when every post was a guess and every rider a volunteer. Inside, a man sits cross-legged on a woven mat, reading by oil lamp. He doesn't look up. "You have 1 message," he says. You hesitate. "2," you answer. He nods, like that changes everything. You hand him the first tube. He places it in a copper slot embedded in the wall. It disappears with a click. You open your mouth to mention the second, but he raises 1 finger and says, "That one doesn't move yet." You blink. "It waits," he adds, "until the storm." You think back to the ferryman. That same word. Storm. Something's building. Something no courier is being told. You want to ask, but yam couriers don't ask, they ride. So you nod. The message stays. He hands you a new satchel, sealed, marked with the red thread of urgency. You don't know what it says. You never do. But the saddle calls again. Back outside, the gorge is quiet. The scraping sound hasn't returned. The moon peeks back through the canyon, silvering the rocks in a way that makes them seem less like teeth, more like guardians. Your horse waits. You mount, and you ride. The wind meets you again on the other side of the gorge, cold and impatient, as if to say, "There you are, I've been waiting." It tugs at your cloak and bites your fingertips, but you've grown used to its greetings. After all, the wind is the only thing that never stops moving in this world of riders. You are back on open ground, and the sky has turned that deep navy blue that signals dawn is hiding just below the horizon. A band of pale light stretches in the east. You could almost believe it's calm, peaceful even. But something is off. Your horse feels it too. His ears twitch with that quiet paranoia animals seem to have when something in the air doesn't belong. You tighten your grip on the reins, but keep your pace steady, because you're on the most dangerous stretch of the Yam yet, the one called Shadow Line. It doesn't appear on maps, not the official ones anyway. But couriers know it. A stretch of land where messages had a nasty habit of arriving late, corrupted, or never at all. Not because of terrain, not because of weather, because of people. You see, the Mongol communication system was so effective, so stupidly, frighteningly efficient, that eventually it became worth sabotaging. Not just by foreign enemies, but by rivals within the empire. There were nobles who didn't want certain messages delivered. Generals who wanted time to lose an order until it was too late to act. Even family members of the Khan himself who used the network to outmaneuver each other politically. And right here, along the Shadow Line, was where it happened most. Because this region wasn't loyal to anyone. The tribes here were absorbed into the empire. Yes, but never fully. They bowed, paid tribute, served when summoned, but they didn't forget. They didn't forgive. And if a courier came through with something they didn't like, let's just say the courier might keep riding, but the message wouldn't. You remember a story told in half a whisper at one of the older posts. A courier, young, overconfident, a bit too handsome for his own good, was sent through this stretch with a message to his southern commander. He was found 3 days later at the next station, perfectly unharmed, but unable to speak. His voice was gone. Permanently. No bruises, no wounds, just silence. He never wrote again. The message, swapped for a forgery somewhere in the journey. The consequences were felt weeks later. 2 divisions of troops moved the wrong direction, a siege failed, and 3 generals were executed for disobedience. But none of them had disobeyed. Just misinformed. All because someone along the Shadow Line decided what should be said. You pass a group of birds clustered in the low branches of a dry tree, 6 or 7 black shapes, unmoving, watching. Superstition among couriers says if you see them before sunrise, you must spit over your left shoulder, then ride without looking back. You do it, because why not? This isn't a profession that rewards skepticism. The path you're on now has been deliberately disguised. It weaves around stones and dips low into a shallow ravine lined with brush. You have to trust the horse here more than your memory. There's a worn-down marker, barely a notch in a tree, to signal when to veer left. You spot it just in time. The world narrows around you. The path tightens. And then suddenly, a man in the trail. Standing. Still. Dressed in a courier's cloak. You pull up hard. Your horse stomps the earth, uncertain. The man doesn't move. Your hand drops to the strap on your satchel. That's when you see it. His paisa. It glints in the dim light, but it's wrong. Not the shape you recognize. The script is off. Too many flourishes of forgery. He smiles, says nothing, then steps slowly aside into the brush and disappears. You exhale, a long, slow breath you didn't know you were holding. You ride on. You don't speed up. You don't look back. You don't tell yourself it didn't happen, because it did. And this is the Shadow Line. At midday, the sun breaks over a crest of hills ahead. The scrub thins. The land opens again, and in the distance, just barely visible, a tower, not a fortress, not a watchpost, a message tower. Now, this is something special. Genghis Khan, in his madness, genius, wisdom, didn't stop at horses and stations. No, in strategic places across the empire, he built signal towers, tall wooden structures used to send short messages over long distances, using flags in daylight, smoke by day, fire by night, and on rare specific occasions, mirrors.
Yes.
Polished bronze, angled to catch the sun and flash coded signals across dozens of kilometers. Primitive Morse code, if you will. Flashes of light, each one meaning a word, a number, or a command. Messages that traveled faster than any horse ever could. Of course, these couldn't replace couriers entirely, but when seconds mattered, a tower was a godsend. You approach this one with reverence. It's old, maybe a century. The wood groans under its own weight. The steps creak as you climb. At the top, a young man sits beside a series of rods, levers, and polished plates. He's eating a fig. He doesn't seem to notice you at first. Then he nods. "You're late," he says. You shake your head. "No," you reply. "The sun's early," he grins. Then points east. "Message came an hour ago. Courier inbound, priority tube confirmed. That you?" You nod. He hands you a slip of silk. Coordinates. "Your next checkpoint, slightly off the original route." You frown. He shrugs. New orders. You go where it tells you. Or he lifts his hand, mimicking an explosion. Someone else does. Back down the tower. New direction. South by southeast. You mount. The road shifts again. You adjust your grip on the reins. The tower fades behind you like a forgotten story. And you ride. The sun beats down from a cloudless sky now. No more the gentle suggestion of warmth it offered at dawn. This is high noon heat. Dry, thick, and stubborn, like the air itself has decided to sit on your chest and judge your life choices. Your horse doesn't complain, but you can tell he's thinking about it. You've veered off the known road now, following the coordinates written on that narrow slip of silk. The letters are faint, charcoal ink on worn fibers, and as you ride, you keep glancing at it, half hoping it'll suddenly say, "Just kidding, turn back and take a nap." It never does. South by southeast. Into the basin. A land the Mongols used to call the Bowl of Sky. A name that sounds poetic, until you realize it's mostly just wide, open land ringed by distant mountains and very little water. A place that plays tricks with the horizon, where distances stretch forever and shadows don't follow the rules. In short, it's a courier's nightmare. And yet, the yam ran straight through it. Because of course it did. You shift in the saddle, trying to ease the pressure on your lower back. Your thighs are already going numb, and your canteen is down to half. Still, you keep going. That's the first rule of courier survival out here. Do not stop. Do not question. Do not bake. The basin route was infamous among yam veterans. Not because of danger, though that was always an option, but because of how boring it was. Imagine this. You're riding at top speed, delivering a time-sensitive message, adrenaline pumping through your veins, your horse in full gallop, and then absolutely nothing happens for 9 hours. No stations, no birds, no sound. Just dry wind and the occasional bush judging you silently from a distance. This kind of nothingness, it drives lesser riders mad. There are stories of couriers stopping mid-route, convinced they'd been riding in circles, even though the terrain hadn't changed. One rider walked for 3 days thinking his horse had betrayed him, only to realize he was the one who'd been turning slightly too far east for hours. He later blamed sunstroke. His horse refused to comment. You keep your eyes on a distant landmark now, a lone rock shaped like an overturned bowl. Faint memories stir. It's known as the Monk's Head, and it marks the halfway point of the basin run. If you pass it and don't see the stone cairn to its right, you're off course. Simple rule. Easy to forget. But that's the trick of the basin. It makes you second guess what you already know. And here's where the Mongols pulled another trick from their oversized sleeves. See, in places like this, where even a trained courier could lose their way, they didn't just build relay stations. They built underground caches. Little hidden outposts buried in dunes or dug into dry gullies, accessible only by coordinates and an encoded passphrase. Food, water, spare sandals, and sometimes a tiny scroll offering new instructions. They were called whispered dens. Only the most trusted riders knew about them, and only a few were ever found by archaeologists. You pass Monk's Head now, its shadow tilted just slightly to the west. Your eyes scan the area. There, cairn on the right. 3 stones stacked like a child's drawing of a mountain. You exhale, still on track. But then something strange. At the base of the cairn, tucked barely beneath the lower stone, you catch a glint of red thread. You slow the horse. Dismount. Crouch low. Red thread means priority code, usually left in emergencies when a relay station can't be reached in time. You pull it free, careful not to disturb the structure. It's a strip of parchment, wrapped tight and sealed with a wax thumbprint. No crest, no name. You break it. Detour southwest. Stormfront inbound. Avoid standard relay. Use whisper den at hollow route. There it is again. Storm. That word keeps following you like a shadow you didn't invite. You don't hesitate, you remount, you veer southwest. It's not even a decision anymore, just instinct. And that, more than anything, makes you realize you're no longer just using the yam, you're becoming it. The new trail leads you toward a depression in the earth, less a valley, more a shallow scar. You follow a dry stream bed for a while, then spot it, a cluster of twisted trees that look like they're arguing with each other. One of them, a half-dead stump with exposed roots like grasping fingers, points downward. Hollow root. You dismount and begin to search. 10 minutes pass, then your foot hits something. You brush away dirt and find a wooden plank barely wider than your palm, half rotted but still holding together. Beneath it, a hatch. You knock once, pause, knock twice. The wood shifts. A narrow gap opens. Inside, the whisper den is cool, smells like cedar and dust. A small oil lamp flickers to life, revealing a cramped space barely large enough to stand in. A woman sits in the corner, bent over a map that looks older than the empire itself. She looks up. Her eyes are sharp, her hands stained with ink. "Storm's coming early," she says. "You'll need a faster horse." You blink. You haven't spoken yet. "No time," she adds. "You've got an urgent to deliver. Sit, eat, then go." She tosses you a flat cake and a cup of something bitter. You chew in silence. Then she hands you a new scroll, wrapped in waxed cloth, sealed in black. "Don't drop it," she says. Then, softer, "You might be the last to carry it." You mount your new horse, a tall, lean creature with eyes like someone who's seen war and taxes and doesn't like either. It snorts as if to say, "Let's get this over with." The woman watches you go. No wave, no goodbye, just the silence of someone who's sent too many messengers into the dust. You ride again. The wind is picking up, and far ahead, on the horizon, clouds, heavy, dark, and fast. The clouds arrive faster than any horse could ever hope to outrun. 1 minute they're shapes on the edge of the world, just dark smudges you could ignore if you squinted hard enough. The next, they're overhead, rolling in like an invading army with no interest in negotiation. Your horse's ears flatten. You tighten your cloak and lean lower in the saddle. The wind has teeth now, cold, wet, biting into your cheeks with every gust. It smells like rain and something else, something metallic. Old blood, wet stone. The kind of scent that doesn't just say storm, it says memory. This isn't just weather. This is a storm with a name. You've heard the stories, every courier has. Once in a while, a storm like this would sweep across the steppe, so big it swallowed entire regions of the Yam in a single day. Messages lost, horses drowned, stations buried in mud and thunder and silence. One was even given a name, the Curtain. Not because of the rain, not because of the wind, because when it hit, it fell between one day and the next, like someone drawing a heavy curtain across the sky, cutting off the light, the path, and sometimes the rider. The curtain was said to have eaten 3 couriers in a single night. Only their horses made it out. And now here you are, galloping straight into it. Well done. You guide your horse off the open trail and toward a ridge seeking higher ground. There's no shelter here, just the occasional outcropping of rock, scattered like broken teeth across the slope. Your new horse is fast, lean, but not fond of storms. It keeps snorting, throwing its head, eyes wide. Lightning cracks across the sky in a jagged pulse. Your fingers tighten on the reins. The message at your side shifts slightly. Heavier now, it seems, though you know it isn't. Still sealed, still silent, and yet somehow louder than thunder. In these moments, you don't think in full sentences. You think in protocol. Rain mode. Cloak tight, satchel underarm, avoid low ground, avoid rivers, do not seek shelter unless station confirmed, ride until safe, ride until dry, ride until stopped. You repeat it to yourself like a prayer. The rain hits suddenly. Fat, hard drops like coins flung from the sky. It soaks through your gloves in seconds. You taste salt on your lips, your eyes sting, your horse charges forward with the determination of someone who has absolutely no interest in dying today. Good horse. You reach a plateau. For a moment, the land spreads beneath you, and you see it. The storm, in full. It's not just above you, it's everywhere. A black wall of water and wind and an earth grinding the steppe into something unrecognizable. And within it, briefly, terrifyingly, you see a station. Or what used to be one, a yurt, half collapsed, a flag torn in two, no smoke, no lights, buried under a sheet of gray like a mouth closing mid-scream. You ride away from it, because you know what happens to couriers who seek help from the wrong station in a storm. They become part of the next one. Now for something the historians don't talk about. You see, the Yam had emergency overlays, unofficial, flexible paths designed for extreme weather. They weren't documented. They weren't even really discussed. They were taught in fragments, a line whispered by a station keeper, a direction carved into a stable door, a map drawn in ash and swept away before dawn. They called it the wind spine. You're on it now. Not because you chose to be, because you remembered it. You bank left, guiding your horse along a raised path you barely see. The land here is slightly firmer, angled away from flood zones, a long ridge, sparse trees, hidden cover. Every few miles you pass markers no outsider would notice. A tree split by lightning, a circle of white stones, a stump carved with what looks like a bite. None of them mean anything. Unless you've ridden in a storm. And you ride through wind that howls like it wants your name, through rain that makes you doubt your own direction, through flashes of light so bright you wonder if the sky is trying to rewrite history one bolt at a time. Your horse stumbles once, recovers. You whisper to him without thinking, not in words, in sound, in memory, the same way the yam was built. Eventually you spot it, a glow, faint, golden, flickering like someone remembered you exist. You guide your horse toward it, breath tight in your throat. It's a cave, low, narrow, but warm, dry, hidden behind a fold in the land. Inside, a fire burns in a clay pit. Two people sit beside it, one sharpening a blade, the other holding a broken saddle in her lap like it betrayed her. They glance up as you enter. The man with the blade nods once. Wind spine, he says. You nod back. You're soaked to the bone. Your hands shake, but you've made it. And the message? Still dry, still sealed. You sleep only for an hour, wrapped in borrowed wool, pressed close to the fire, dreaming of mirrors flashing across towers and horses leaping rivers. When you rise, the storm has passed, but the world is not the same. The road ahead is quieter, thinner, laced with the aftertaste of something undone. You mount your horse, the two couriers nod as you leave. No words, no luck wished, only the yam, only the ride. So you ride. The storm has left its fingerprints everywhere. Puddles like shattered mirrors dot the path ahead. The earth, once packed and steady, now squander each step of your horse's hooves with a kind of reluctant exhaustion, like the land itself is sighing. Again? Really? Even the trees, such as they are in this sparse region, lean just slightly more than they did yesterday, as though the wind whispered secrets too heavy to bear. You ride slower now, not by choice, but by necessity. The mud is slick, the path half erased, and the message at your side is more precious than ever. You keep checking it again and again, still sealed, still dry, still humming with that quiet weight. You're not far from the capital now, but this is where things get tricky, because the closer a courier gets to power, the more dangerous the journey becomes. There's a concept in the old courier code, narturga, loosely translated as the invisible fork. It refers to the moment when a rider, nearing the end of a route, begins to see multiple possible outcomes forming ahead, like ghost paths no one else can see. A wrong word, a wrong delay, a wrong rider met on the trail, and history veers in a new direction. The Mongols understood this well. That's why the last stations before a major city were always doubled. 2 stations, 2 keepers, each in secret competition with the other, each unaware of the other's exact messages. Redundancy, yes, but also surveillance. Trust no one, not even your own system, especially not your own system. You crest a small rise and spot it. The first of the twin stations. It looks like an old granary, wide, low roof, a sagging fence, and smoke lazily twisting from a crooked chimney. You dismount, your legs stiff as carved wood. The horse whinnies softly, as if to say, "You owe me apples," and an apology. You nod to him. There. The station door opens before you knock. A man stands there, broad-shouldered, bearded, eyes sharp and red-rimmed from lack of sleep or too much thinking. His cloak is plain, no rank insignia, which is already a red flag. "Message," he says. No greeting. You pause. Shift your weight. Don't speak. "We were expecting you," he adds, and that's the second red flag. Because only one of the twin stations is supposed to know you're coming. The real one. So either you found the right place or you're being tested. You say nothing. Instead, you reach into your cloak, not for the message, but for a small coin-sized disc, engraved on one side with a tree, on the other with a series of dots. A code token. Not official currency. Not decorative. A signal. You roll it across the floor toward him. He doesn't blink. But he does lean forward to pick it up. As he reads it, you watch. The lines on his face change. And you know, this isn't the real station. You're out the door before he can stand. Back in the saddle, your horse sensing the urgency like a veteran. No commands needed. You ride hard, doubling back through the wet grass, eyes scanning for the other trailhead. There. A line of stones, partially buried in the earth, curving east. No sign. No gate. Just instinct and a rider's knowledge of where not to go. 15 minutes later, you arrive at the true station. It's smaller, older, no smoke, just a pair of horses grazing quietly in a patch of dry ground beside a sloped hut that almost disappears into the hill. You dismount, approaching the door with a calm you don't feel. You knock once, pause, knock twice. A woman opens it, middle-aged, hair bound in a cloth that's stained with ink and dye. She doesn't smile, just looks at you, then at your saddle. "Storm survived?" she asks. You nod. She opens the door fully. No questions about the message, no talk of expectations, just a basin of water, a cloth, a place to sit. The real station never rushes. That's how you know it's safe. She brings you stew, something with root vegetables and a meat you choose not to identify. You eat slowly, letting your fingers warm beside a shallow clay fire pit. Then she gestures to your satchel. You remove the message. She inspects the seal, still unbroken. Her fingers run along the edges of the wax. "Black seal," she murmurs. "Few of those left." You ask her if she knows what it contains. She shakes her head. "We don't read them. That's the rule." Then quieter, but we guess. You both fall silent, because by now you're guessing too. Something is happening. The storm, the reroute, the false station. Something big is moving across the empire. And this little scroll at your side might be the fuse, the match, or the final breath before the roar. She tells you your final leg will be short. One more half-day's ride to reach the outer capital Post. From there, a royal courier will take the message into the city itself, into the hands of generals, ministers, maybe even the Khan's direct descendants. You don't ride into the city, she reminds you. No Yam courier ever does. That's the line. You nod. You knew that already, but it still stings a little. You've carried this thing through mud, fire, wind, and silence, and you'll stop 10 steps short of the finish line. That's the rule. Before you leave, she gives you a final token, a ribbon, deep blue, tied with a silver thread. "It marks your ride as confirmed," she says. "If someone tries to stop you before the capital, show it, then ride faster." The implication is clear. Not everyone wants this message delivered. And you're no longer just a courier, you're the last stretch of a centuries-old muscle reflex, and you will finish it. You mount the horse. The sun is climbing again, steady, relentless. The wind returns, not violent, not gentle, just present. And in the distance, the edges of the capital shimmer like a mirage. So close, so full of teeth. You adjust your grip, and you ride. The landscape leading to the capital isn't as dramatic as you expected. No grand arches, no stone roads, no drums echoing your approach. It's just grass, wind, a scattering of low hills slouching toward the horizon, too tired to rise properly. Somewhere beyond them lies the beating heart of the empire. But out here, you could almost forget. Almost. Because every step your horse takes toward that distant skyline feels heavier. Not in weight, but in consequence. This is the last stretch, the end of the ride, and somehow it's also the most dangerous. The Yam couriers called this stretch the Golden Vein, not for the scenery, but for the value of the information that moved through it. Here, every rider was being watched, not just by rival stations or competing officials, but by spies, couriers hired by other couriers, station keepers bribed by nobles, soldiers with too much time and too little loyalty. You could see the capital from here, and that meant someone could see you. And when you carried a message with a black seal, a color reserved for only the highest clearance, most sensitive intelligence, people noticed. And sometimes, people interfered. You pass a lone tree bent sideways by years of wind. Tied to its base is a bone charm, carved with symbols only a few people in the Yam would recognize. You're one of them. It's a warning. You're being tracked down. You don't change your pace. That's part of the protocol. Do not show recognition. But your hand drifts toward your side pouch, fingers brushing the hilt of your courier's knife. Not much for a fight. More a tool for survival, field repairs, or, if things go badly, message destruction. Better to lose the courier than to lose the message. You whisper to the horse, not a word, just a sound, the sound of flight. And he listens. The path narrows through a copse of thorn trees, a known ambush spot. You angle slightly west, off the path across an open stretch of grass where hoofprints fade quickly. Good, because you're not riding alone anymore. There's someone behind you. Not close, but not far enough either. You can't hear them, but you feel them. That's enough. Now, it's time for a lesson they only teach once. The cutback protocol. When the message is too important to risk even one more mile, the courier has one option left. Divide and confuse. At the next small hill, you slide off the horse while still in motion. Careful, quiet, practiced. You toss a decoy pouch onto the saddle, shaped like the satchel, sealed with wax, filled with nothing but blank parchment and a tightly rolled strip of smoked meat for weight. Then you slap the horse's flank. He bolts forward. You roll down the hill and vanish. The grass is wet, your ribs ache, but you're alive. And the real message is still strapped under your cloak. You crawl through the underbrush, cut west then north again, moving parallel to the main path, low and unseen. The city is still ahead, though now you'll have to reach the outer post on foot. Or maybe not, because there it is, tethered behind a screen of shrubs, a relay horse. You grin. Someone's watching out for you after all. Or maybe this is just one of those moments when the yam answers a silent prayer. You mount. No saddle, no reins, but the horse knows. You tap once with your heel and ride. 20 minutes later, the trees thin. Capital sprawls ahead, not towering and golden like some stories claim, but vast. Alive, a quilt of yurts, tiled roofs, watchtowers, markets, prayer flags, smoke rising in neat threads, soldiers moving like ants, light catching on the curve of polished helmets and ceremonial spears. At the edge of it all, nestled beside a narrow canal, sits a squat, domed building carved from white stone. No flags, no guards, just a wooden arch marked with the symbol of the yam. The outer capital post. You dismount. Your legs nearly give out beneath you, but you stand, adjust your cloak, cross the final 100 steps with the quiet of someone walking in a sacred hall. Inside, the building is cool, silent. A scribe sits at a low table, sharpening a quill with the focus of a man who would rather die than smear ink. He looks up, doesn't smile, just nods. Message? You draw the real scroll from beneath your coat, still sealed, still dry, still humming. You place it in his hands. He examines the seal, then looks up again. This time he bows, not to you, to the message. You don't ask what happens next. You never do. Your part is done. The words will go forward, into halls of power, into trembling hands, into history. You might never know what they say, but you'll feel them someday. In the ripple of maps redrawn, in the silence of battles that never came, or in the price of bread shifting across markets 1,000 miles away. This is the yam. You were its vessel, and now you step out of the post and you ride. No longer. You walk. The saddle marks are still raw on your thighs. Each step away from the capital post feels like peeling back a layer of yourself, a layer made of speed and silence and sweat. You're no longer carrying a message, but your body doesn't know that yet. It still twitches like you've forgotten something, still listens for hoofbeats behind you, still tenses every time wind brushes your back in case it's not wind at all. This is the curse of the courier. The message goes on without you, but the ride stays. They don't throw parties for riders like you. No one waves flags. There's no feast waiting at the end, no song to mark your arrival. You hand off the scroll, and that's it. Mission complete. You become part of the background again. Just another shape in the crowd, dirt on your boots, story in your bones. But sometimes, just sometimes, you're sent a sign. And as you walk through the outer ring of the capital, still sore, still quiet, you find yours. A narrow alley, a yurt with red trim, a man boiling tea in a cracked clay pot. You've never met him, but you know who he is. The listener. Not an official rank, not even a job, technically. He's what the yam calls a dust keeper, someone who tracks the residue of messages, someone who watches the couriers when they're no longer couriers, someone who sees what isn't spoken. He glances up as you approach, doesn't smile. Long road? He asks, as if you're discussing the weather. You nod. You rode the spine, he adds, pouring tea. You don't answer, but yes, you did. Black seal, he mutters, that explains the ghost riders. You sit. He hands you a bowl. The tea is bitter and smoky and hot enough to burn the roof of your mouth, but that's good. That's real. You were followed, he says, not asking. Again, you say nothing, but yes, you were. You dropped a decoy, he continues. Now you raise an eyebrow. And you're wondering if they got the real one anyway. That gets your attention, because, yes, some part of you wonders if the message survived after you handed it off. If the man with the ink-stained fingers passed it to the right hands, if the seal held, if the ride mattered. He leans forward, eyes sharp beneath his hood. You're thinking like a merchant, he says, measuring the weight of the ride, the value, the delivery. But that's not the yam. That's not why we ride. He taps his chest once. We ride because the silence between empires must be bridged, whether the message gets there or not. You sip the tea again. Let that settle. The listener offers you a bedroll behind the yurt. You decline. You're not ready to stop moving. Instead, you take the long road east, walking through back streets and market trails. People rush past, shouting prices and promises. Carts creak, coins jingle. Someone yells about dried fish in a language you don't speak. No one looks twice at you. That's good. That means you've done your job. As night falls, you find a quiet hill outside the city walls. There's a single lantern post there, unlit, no guard, no sign, but you know what it is. A courier marker. Buried under the soil at its base, a metal ring. Touch it, and it sings. Not literally, but to the trained hand, the vibration of the metal is enough. It says, "You made it. Someone knows. The road remembers you." You sit there a long time, watching the stars, listening to the distant sounds of empire, and you think about what's next. Another message, maybe. Another ride, or maybe, for once, rest. But deep down, you know the truth. There's always another message, because the yam never stops. And neither do you. You close your eyes, and somewhere far away, another rider mounts their horse. Another scroll is sealed. Another wind begins to howl across the grasslands, and the world turns, and the road calls, and someone rides. You don't dream. Not that night, not the next. When you sleep, it's the kind of sleep that drops on you like a collapsed tent. Sudden, absolute, and entirely without ceremony. No visions, no echoes of hoofbeats, no thunder in the distance. Just blackness and breath, and the vague sense that your bones are trying to renegotiate their contract with your body. When you wake, the sky is the color of old steel. The capital behind you murmurs in its morning rituals. Vendors unloading carts, soldiers swapping shifts, children arguing about stones and songs. You hear it all from the hill, high enough to see, but far enough to be invisible. You think briefly about going back to the outer post, asking what happened to the scroll, if it made it, if it mattered. But you already know what they'd say. If it didn't matter, they wouldn't have given it to you. And so you stay. Because sometimes the answer is the silence. The days pass slowly now. For the first time in weeks, you don't measure time in leagues or stations or the number of horses you've exhausted. You sit, you walk, you stretch muscles that forgot they could uncoil. You begin to feel human again, almost, until a shadow crosses your path at sunset on the fourth day. A boy, maybe 13, wearing a sash marked with the three-thread braid of a message initiate. He carries no satchel, no horse, just a small wooden case and the wide-eyed urgency of someone too young for the weight he's bearing. He finds you without asking, without hesitation, just steps forward, opens the case, and reveals a sealed scroll. Blue ribbon, double knot, gold wax, your name carved into the edge. Not your courier title, not your route, your name. You stare at it. He holds it out like it's sacred, because it is. You don't open it right away. That's part of the discipline. You wait until the sun drops behind the hills and the sky bleeds into deep velvet. You wait until the fire is lit. You wait until you're alone. Then carefully you unseal the wax. Inside, a single line. Ride east to the red banner field. The eye must be warned. No signature, no station mark, just that line. You know the place. Red Banner Field, a wide, dry stretch of earth known more for legends than roads. Not technically part of the Yam anymore. Too remote. Too exposed, too forgotten. But the eye, that's a term reserved for exactly one person in the Yam network. The eye is the counter shadow, the overseer of hidden messages, the watcher who watches the watchers. They live in isolation, no station, no soldiers, just a circle of silent riders who deliver whispers and ghosts and warnings not even generals are allowed to hear. If you're being sent to the eye, something's coming. Something big. You break camp before the fire burns out. No time for new boots, no time for a fresh saddle. You borrow a horse from a stable just outside the wall. Leave payment, though the boy who lent it to you pretends not to see. The horse is old, scarred, smells like apples and arrogance. Perfect. You ride east. Not fast. Not yet. This isn't a delivery. This is a summoning. The Yam doesn't just carry orders. It calls people when it needs them. And tonight, it's calling you. The route to Red Banner Field is long, 4 days minimum, 5 if the rivers are high. You pass through forgotten towns, past wells that no longer bubble, through villages where elders still speak the old yam passwords in their sleep, though they haven't seen a courier in years. At one post, a tilted yurt with more holes than cloth, a child hands you a strip of leather. Burned into it, he is not blind, only resting. Code for the eye. He's still alive, still watching, still waiting. On the third night, you ride through a place where the wind stops. No sound, no bugs, no birds, just the rustle of your cloak and the faint creak of your horse's breath. You pass a stone ring, 5 slabs, each marked with a rider's name. Some of the names you recognize. One of them might be yours. You don't stop to check. You don't need to. When you finally reach the field, the grass is gone, replaced by red dust, fine as ash. It coats your boots, your sleeves, your thoughts. In the center of the field, a tent, black, circular, silent, no guards, no flags, just a small pole planted outside wrapped in silver thread. You dismount. Your horse bows its head and waits. Because it knows. Even horses know the eye. You step forward. The tent's flap moves before you touch it, and a voice, dry as paper, says, "What did you see? Not what do you bring, not who are you. Just that. What did you see?" You draw in a slow breath, and you answer. Because you were summoned. And the road has found you again, and the yam has opened its other eye. And the storm that passed wasn't the real one. The real one, it's just beginning. And you ride. Inside the tent, the air is heavy, dense with dust, incense, and that strange quiet found only in places too old to echo. Your eyes adjust slowly. A fire pit glows in the center, not with flame, but with embers, red as coals from a fallen star. Around it sit 5 figures, cloaked, still watching. But only one speaks, the eye. You don't see his face, just the shape of him, wrapped in layers of gray and black, hunched like a man who's carried secrets too long and too far. But his voice cuts through the stillness like a sharp, thin blade. You carried a black seal. Not a question, a statement. You were rerouted through the spine, storm-born, shadow-marked. You nod once, still standing. He nods too. And now you've come to me. You feel suddenly young again, like a recruit, like the kid who once rode 12 hours without stopping, threw up from heat exhaustion, and still delivered a message with vomit on the seal and pride in his chest. But you're not that kid anymore. You're tired, you're used, and you're starting to wonder if the message wasn't the only thing that got carried too far. The eye gestures to the floor beside the embers. You sit. A bowl is passed to you. It smells like bitter roots and time itself. You drink, because refusing isn't an option, and because your throat has been dry for 3 days. We have been watching, he says, but now we need you to speak. You tell him everything, not just the route, not just the sealed scroll. You tell him about the false station, about the detour in the basin, about the ferryman who said storm like it wasn't just weather. You tell him about the forged paisa, the watcher behind you, the moment you dropped the decoy. You even tell him about the boy who found you outside the capital and how he never once asked your name. When you finish, the tent is silent. The other 4 figures haven't moved. You wonder if they're alive. The eye leans back, and then, for the first time, he laughs. It's not loud, but it is unsettling. Do you know, he says, what was in the message? You shake your head. A request, nothing more. Pause. A request for silence. He lets that hang there like a bit of ash in the air. The scroll you delivered was not an order, not a declaration, not even intelligence. It was a single request written by a hand that shakes from a man whose power is failing. He leans forward. He asked us to delay what is already coming. You don't respond because you know now. It wasn't about the message. It was about the act of delivering it, the ritual, the momentum, the illusion that someone still had control. You were the theater. A rider, thundering across the land, braving storms and enemies and ghosts, must be carrying something powerful. And if enough people believed it, maybe it would buy the Empire time. Maybe it would hold the storm at bay. But it didn't. It never could. Because the storm isn't coming. The storm is already here. The eye stands. He walks, slowly, carefully, to the edge of the tent and parts the flap just enough to show you the horizon. And there, in the distance, you see it. Dust. Rising, not from a wind, not from weather, but from hooves, thousands of them, coming from the west. A rebellion? You whisper. The eye shakes his head. A splinter. He looks to the other figures. One of ours. A former courier, a master of the Yam. He's building his own network. Faster, crueler, controlled by fear, not trust. You feel your chest tighten. A courier? But that doesn't make sense. The Yam is loyalty. The Yam is discipline. No rider would ever... His name is Sharim, the eye says. You rode under him once, before you earned your paisa. Your blood runs cold. You remember Sharim, a rider like no other. Fast, silent, precise. But too precise, too cold. He believed messages were power, not service. He used to say, we don't deliver the empire. We are the empire. You thought it was a metaphor. It wasn't. You look again at the dust cloud. It's growing, moving with purpose. The eye turns back to you. We need a counter-rider, someone he doesn't expect, someone he taught, someone he underestimated. He reaches into the folds of his cloak, draws out something small, heavy, gold. A new paisa, one with no markings, no crest, only one word carved deep into its face. Echo. You stare at it. You understand now. You're not a courier anymore. You're a signal. And the ride ahead, it's not a message, it's a response. The Yam has been awakened, the eye is open, and the road has teeth again. So you take the paisa, you rise, and once more, you ride. The new paisa feels heavier than the last. Not in weight. It's about the same size, the same cold metal, but it sits in your hand like a stone that remembers the ocean. It hums, quietly, like it already knows where you're going, like it's trying to warn you, but there's no turning back now. You slide it into the leather pouch beneath your cloak, tighten the strap, and step out of the eye's tent. The sky is bleeding red at the edges, the last light of day burning low over the cracked earth of Red Banner Field. The air smells like iron, like sweat, like a road that's about to vanish beneath your feet the moment you step on it. You mount your borrowed horse, same old creature, still chewing the reins like none of this concerns him. You whisper to him. Not a command, just a tone. He listens, and together you ride into the coming dark. This isn't like the last ride, before you were a courier, a vessel. A shadow on the map, moving messages between powerful hands. Your job was to be invisible. But now, you're a signal. You're meant to be seen. You're meant to be felt. The eye didn't give you a route, because there isn't one. Not anymore. Sharim's rogue network, the false Yam, some are calling it, has already begun carving new lines across the empire. Faster, sharper, deadly. Using everything he learned from the old system and bending it. Stations bribed, horses stolen. Guests, messages rewritten, riders turned, and that's why you've been given the paisa marked Echo. Because you're not delivering anything. You're reverberating. Your orders are simple. Ride to the eastern provinces, find the broken posts, light the towers, make them remember who the Yam really is. A flare, a warning, a declaration. The empire still rides. The first night is quiet. Too quiet. No riders on the trail, no markers, just the wind and the soft pounding of hooves against earth that's forgotten what urgency feels like. You pass through a station at midnight, empty. Half the roof collapsed, the walls tagged with strange glyphs, not bandit marks, not tribal runes, courier code, twisted, changed. It says, only those who control the message deserve to live. You don't stop, you don't reply. But inside, something shifts, because that was one of Sharim's phrases, and it's not just propaganda, it's a test. He's watching. He wants to see who breaks. At dawn, you reach the first tower. Not tall. Just a single platform built over an outcropping of stone, old rope ladder still hanging, half-rotted and begging for a splinter. You climb. Each rung creaks with memory. At the top, the brazier is filled with cold ash. You reach into your pouch, pull out the fireseed capsule, given by the eye, snap it between your hands. It sparks, ignites. The flame rises blue, not orange. A Yam signal. Our reclamation fire. Anyone with training will see it from 40 miles in any direction. And anyone watching will know the Yam still breathes. You wait until the flame settles into its rhythm, steady, low, flickering like a heartbeat. Then you climb back down, mount your horse, ride east. Midway through the second day, they find you. 3 riders, black cloaks, no insignia, horses sleek and trained. They don't speak, just flank you. You say nothing, neither do they. This is how it starts. The test. They want to see how far you'll go before asking. Before flinching, before failing, you keep riding. They follow. Not fast, not threatening, just present. You ride faster, so do they. By nightfall, they're still behind you, still 3. still watching. At the second tower, you don't climb immediately. Instead, you dismount slowly. Make a show of limping, like the ride has worn you thin. You brush your horse's neck. He breathes hard, but trusts you. Then, with the fire seed hidden in your palm, you climb. You reach the top. And instead of lighting the flame immediately, you wait. 10 minutes, 15. Then, movement. Below, one of the riders circles the base of the tower. Another dismounts. You snap the fire seed. The blue light explodes. The rider below curses, loud, too loud for a courier. Real yam riders never curse like that. Not when it counts. Which means they're not yours. You leap, yes, off the tower. Because the real escape was never upward. It was down, into the brush, into the stream bed that runs under the hill. You roll once, twice, knees howling, elbows screaming, but you keep moving. Pull yourself through the brambles. Hear hoofbeats above, panicked shouts, steel drawn from a scabbard. Too late. You're already halfway to the third tower, already echoing through the network like a crack in stone. This is how you ride now. Not in straight lines. Not between known posts. You bounce, you scatter, you rise and vanish like lightning in dry air, and everywhere you go, the blue fire follows. Tower after tower, signal after signal, each one brighter than the last, each one saying without words, "We are not gone, we are not broken, we still ride." And behind you, more riders join, real ones, some too young, some too old, but all of them remember. They bring back the old passwords, the quiet signals, the silent nods. And you become more than a courier again. You become the legend they whisper around fires, the ghost fire rider, the one Sharim couldn't catch, the one who made the yam burn again. But the ride isn't over yet, because far to the south, the last tower waits. And at its base, Sharim, smiling, waiting, listening for the sound of your hooves, because this time he'll be ready, and this time, so will you. And still, you ride. The road to the southern tower is unlike any you've ridden before. It isn't marked. There are no cairns, no signal trees, no braided grass to guide you, not even the old pulse of wind that seemed to hum along the yam roots like a companion with a steady rhythm. This is off-grid. The old maps don't dare guess where it is. The eye didn't mark it. And that tells you one thing. Sharim doesn't want you to find it, which means you absolutely will. You ride at dusk now, using the shadows to blend, to cool, to listen. By day, you find overgrown gullies and dried creek beds to rest in, places even birds hesitate to nest. You cover your horse with gray cloth when you stop, breaking the shape of him, making him a hill in the grass. You haven't spoken to another rider in 2 days, but they're out there. You see signs, new fires lit in the distance, faint blue flashes barely visible on the horizon. Others are still riding. Still echoing your path, still making noise that dares the dark to respond, and now the dark does respond. On the third night, you pass through a ghost town. Hollow yurts sag like exhausted lungs, cooking pots left in fire pits turn to rust and strung between two beams, swaying gently in the breeze. A rope of paisa, dozens of them, all authentic, all broken, snapped in half, bent, melted, defaced. A message without words. The yam is dead here. This is Sharim's ground now. You don't touch them. You don't even breathe near them. You just look. Memorize the pattern. Because later, if you make it through, you'll describe this place in such vivid detail it will become code. A marker. A warning. A rallying cry. But for now, you ride on. At the edge of the valley, you find the first trap, a station, perfectly restored, chimney smoking, 2 horses in the pen, fresh footprints in the dirt, too perfect. You dismount anyway. Approach slowly. And find no scent, no dust, no animal sounds. You walk to the post and gently tap the doorframe. It swings open. Inside, a candle flickers on a table, and beside it, a single scroll. No seal, no ribbon, just your name scrawled in blood. You don't touch it. You know a message trap when you see one. You tear a strip from your sleeve, knot it, and lay it across the threshold. Then, with a flint spark, you ignite the edge. A moment later, boom, the station bursts inwards, a silent flame that burns without smoke. The whole thing was soaked in oil. A false signal kill station, the kind that punishes curiosity, or hesitation, or nostalgia. You ride faster now. No brakes, no tea. Your eyes sting with dust and no sleep, but your mind is clear, sharpened by the realization Sharim isn't just outpacing the yam, he's trying to erase it. The final tower reveals itself at sunrise. It's not tall. Not anymore. Only the foundation remains, a shattered circle of blackened stone rising from a hill like broken teeth. But it's still burning, not with flame, with sound, low, subtle, a hum you can feel in your chest more than hear, like a bone drum struck from underground, and standing beside it, back turned to you, cloaked in red and black, Shreem. He doesn't flinch when you arrive, doesn't turn, just speaks. The yam is broken. You don't answer. They hid behind protocol, lost their speed, lost their bite. He finally turns, and there he is, older, scarred, but unmistakable. The same steel-eyed stare he gave you the first time you rode as an initiate, the man who trained you to survive storms, avoid poisoned meat, spot a false map with a single glance. But not you, he says. You still ride like the old blood, and that makes you dangerous. You drop from the saddle, stand, back straight. Then why haven't you killed me? Shreem smiles. Because I want you to see it. He gestures around the ruins. This is where it ends. No more towers, no more fire, only silence. You step forward slowly. That's where you're wrong. From your belt, you draw the Echo Paisa. Not to wield, not to throw, to plant. You sink it into the ground, tip first, just beside the ruined foundation. It hums, louder than the false tower. You've been sending messages, you say, but I've been sending answers. Shreem's smile fades. That's not enough. It doesn't have to be, you reply. It just has to be louder than you. And then, rising over the next ridge, blue flame. Another, then another. A wave of towers, once cold, reignited, carried by riders who heard the call, who followed the echo, and rode. Shreem doesn't move, he just looks at you. And, for the first time, they'll follow you now, he says. You nod. Good. And then, you turn your back, mount your horse, and ride, leaving the message behind. Because it's already been delivered. And the road, it's burning. And you ride down the far side of the hill with fire at your back. Not metaphor, actual fire. The Echo Paisa planted beside the ruined tower has triggered a chain of ancient yam relays, long dormant, long forgotten, their kindling buried under decades of dust and disuse. But flame remembers. So do couriers. You don't look back. Because this isn't a moment to witness, it's a moment to outrun. The flame races across the grass like it's got something to prove. Blue fire, cold-looking but hot as anything, jumps from hill to hill, catching old signal oils still hidden in tree hollows, roof thatch, and cleverly disguised troughs. Places only yam riders ever knew to check. It's beautiful. It's terrifying. It's working. As you ride, a new sound joins the wind. Hooves. Not just yours this time. Behind you, flanking the fire, riding with it, come the others. The ones who answered your flames. The ones who saw the signals. The ones who chose to saddle up again. They come in ones, in twos, in clusters. Some bear fresh cloaks, others are wearing rags and rusted gear. A few carry bows. Most carry nothing at all, just the memory of duty. But they ride. They all ride. The yam is no longer a courier system, it's a resistance now. And you're its pulse. Midway through the day, a boy no older than 15 rides beside you. His horse is too small, his posture's all wrong, but his eyes are focused. He leans over and shouts over the sound of wind and hoofbeat. What do we do when we reach the city? You don't hesitate. We don't reach it. Then where? Everywhere else. He stares at you like you've spoken in riddles, which, to be fair, you have. But this movement, this echo, it's not a siege, it's not a war, it's a reminder. You don't storm the capital. Oh wait, you remind the capital what the road can still do. You and the others scatter by evening, not because of fear, because of strategy. Each rider splits off in a different direction, lighting blue fires as they go. Smoke signals rise all around the borderlands. Villages see them. Retired station keepers see them. Watchtowers thought dead send back their own faint pulses. It spreads faster than rumors, faster than Shreem, faster than fear. That night, you sleep in the hollow of a dead tree, wrapped in your cloak, the paisa pressed against your chest like a heartbeat. In your dreams, if you can call them that, you see roads waking up, stones rolling aside to reveal hidden caches, old saddles being dusted off, flags that haven't flown in years snapping in sudden wind, and one rider far off under a pale moon, climbing a tower with blue flame in hand. A girl. Young. Determined. You don't know her name. But she rides like someone who heard your story whispered over a campfire and decided to become the next chapter. When you wake, there's dew on your boots and a crow perched on your knee, looking judgmental. You nod to it. It caws and flies off, rude but accurate. Time to move. Your next stop is a forgotten relay outpost in the dry south. You've only heard rumors of it, called Split Mouth, because the hill it's built into looks like a face carved open in anger. It's said to be cursed. Or just selective. No fire's ever taken there. No rider has ever reported making a drop. But someone keeps feeding the horses. You ride for a day and a half without stopping, cutting through a canyon lit by fireflies and fear. The ground here is blackened in places. Someone tried to burn out the old signal lines. You ride around the scars. The sky turns gray, not with storm clouds, with ash. You're getting close. When you reach Split Mouth, it's exactly as described. An open hill, 2 cave-like cuts near the top, a pen with no gate, and inside, 6 horses, all alive, all watching you like they know something you don't. You dismount, your boots crunch on cinders, you step into the left mouth. Dark, cool, and then a whisper. What color rides tonight? You freeze. That's old code. Really old. Not from the current YAM, from the pre-division days. The tribal courier lines, only ghost riders use that phrase. You whisper back, the color that doesn't burn. A pause, then a match strikes. A figure lights a lamp, and in the flicker, you see her. Gray hair, eyes sharp as wire, a paisa with no name. She smiles. Took you long enough. Split Mouth lives, hidden, waiting, and now connected again. You hand her a single strip of cloth, blue fire dyed into silk. Her fingers tremble. We ride again? She asks. You nod. This time we don't wait for permission. Behind you, the wind shifts, carries smoke and flame, and whispers, carries your name, but not in words, in hoofbeats, in riders returning to the trail, in echoes that won't be silenced again, and ahead of you, a new trail, not yet carved, but it will be, because you're still riding. And the road, it's still listening. Dawn doesn't rise. It crawls, a slow gray smear across the sky, barely managing to pull itself over the lip of the blackened hills. The air doesn't warm. The shadows don't shrink. You wonder for a moment if this place is even part of the same empire anymore. But then the old rider, Mara, she finally tells you, hands you a cup of something thick and herbal. And just like that, the world starts to make sense again. Not softer, not kinder, just sharper. Mara hasn't ridden in 15 years. She doesn't say why. You don't ask. She just sharpens blades with practiced hands, cleans old gear with steady motions, and listens more than she talks. You get the sense she's forgotten more about the Yam than most people ever knew. And now you've reawakened her. That should terrify Shireen. You spend the day rebuilding. Together, you dig out half-buried crates, sealed with wax and clay. Inside, messenger codes, flares, saddle maps, and something you haven't seen in years. A black thread cloak, reserved for the oldest of couriers. It bears the silent knotwork of the first riders. Those who rode before the Empire had a name, back when messages were carved into bone and carried in blood. Mara hands it to you. You don't refuse. Split Mouth is the center now, she says. Not the end. The echo begins here. By nightfall, more arrive. 2 riders from the eastern steppes. One old man with a wheelbarrow full of horseshoes. A mute girl who lays out maps using rocks and twigs and has eyes like she's never blinked. None of them speak of the capital. None of them ask for orders. They just start riding, outward, looping wide, lighting new blue fires, carrying whispers to places where no signal has reached in years. It's not organization. It's not a plan. It's something better. It's a pattern, forming faster than anyone can track. You take the high route at first light, not because it's safe, it's not, but because Shireen never liked elevation. Too exposed, he used to say, too vulnerable, which is exactly why it's perfect. You reach the summit at midday, and from there you finally see it. His network. It sprawls below like a poisoned river. His riders, dressed like Yam but moving wrong, are circling known stations. You see burned flags, confiscated horses, relay towers darkened by black smoke. At least 3 are flying Shireen's crest now, red thread over a snapped ring. But here's the thing. He's too organized, too controlled, and control can be exploited. You descend at night, leaving behind the horse. You go on foot now, quiet, low, familiar, like the first time you snuck between rival war camps with a scroll stitched into your belt. You make your way to one of the fake stations just to the edge and listen. They're broadcasting, not by torch, not by rider, by drum, slow, dull pulses carried through the valley walls, a bastardized version of the Yam's old mountain code. And just like the old system, you know how to answer it. You wait until the next beat finishes, then, using a hollow log and your canteen strap, you strike 3 notes in reply. Boom, boom, boom. The silence that follows is long, then a reply. Boom, boom, boom. The station thinks you're one of theirs. Good. You send again. Boom, boom, boom. Pause. Translation. Station compromised, reinforce eastern flank. Another pause. Then frantic reply. You've set them scrambling in the wrong direction. Classic courier misdirection. It won't stop them long, but it'll buy you time. Back on the high trail by morning, you use that time well. 3 more towers lit, 1 hidden whisper den reactivated, messages copied, riders dispatched. The Yam is moving now, like blood returning to frozen limbs, like breath after drowning, like thunder before the storm. And then the letter comes. No courier delivers it. It's left at your next camp, pinned to your saddlebag with a small silver nail, no seal, no signature, just a line. Meet me at the ruins of First Stone, alone, at dusk. You owe me that much. It's Sharim. You don't hesitate. You burn the letter, mount, and ride, because he's right. You do owe him something, not respect, not allegiance, but answer. First Stone is where the Yam was born, where Genghis Khan first ordered the roads connected, where riders first signed their names into the land with hoof prints. It's not on maps anymore, but you've never forgotten the way, and neither has he. As the sun drops low behind the hills, you see it. The stone ring, the old signal pit, the shattered bones of the first Pisa pole, still rooted in the earth like it refuses to fall. And there, standing with his back to you, Sharim. No army, no horses, just him and the road between you. He turns, smiles, and says, "So, we ride the old way then?" You nod. No fire, no flares, just you, me, and the truth. He tilts his head. Then ride with me, one last time, to decide which road the world will take. And in that moment, with dusk falling and history holding its breath, you do something no courier has done in decades. You draw your knife and toss it to the side, because this won't be decided with blades. This will be decided on the ride itself. 2 horses wait, 2 paths marked in the dust. No rules, no map, just the old agreement. First to return, speaks, and the other listens. You mount, you nod, and together, you ride. The rhythm of the horse's hooves is the only sound that fills the night. The air is cold, almost brittle, carrying the scent of damp earth and the distant echo of ancient voices. As you ride, the weight of history presses on your chest, but this time, it's not just the legacy of the Yam. It's the legacy of something more personal. You and Sharim have been riding against the winds of the Empire for so long now. But as the road stretches ahead, the question remains, how far can you push before the road bends back on itself? The night moves with you. It flows and twists, the darkness thickening, making it impossible to see the path clearly. The stars are clouded over, leaving you with only the faint silhouette of Sharim ahead, his figure barely visible under the low moonlight. His horse moves sure and steady, like it's been here before. Like he's been here before. It reminds you of the countless nights spent riding alongside him, the feeling of trust that once held steady between you both. And yet now, with each hoofbeat, the distance grows. The trail winds up a steep incline, the last stretch before the first ridge. The rocky terrain is unforgiving, but neither of you slows. It's a test. For the first time in years, the challenge isn't about outrunning an enemy or the elements. It's about trusting the ride itself. No plan, no destination, just the motion of the journey and the certainty that it's leading somewhere. Somewhere important. Sharim reaches the top first. He halts, turning his horse to face you as you approach. His eyes gleam in the dark, unreadable. But there's something else there now. The edge of familiarity, now worn by time, and something else, something you can't quite put your finger on. He waits, letting you close the gap. You stop a few paces away. You don't speak right away. The wind carries only silence between you, and then, as if waiting for some unspoken signal, Sharim finally breaks the quiet. So this is it then, the final ride. His voice is steady, but there's an undertone of something unspoken, an acceptance, maybe, or regret. You don't answer right away. Instead, you let your gaze sweep the ridgeline, the dark expanse of earth and sky, the land that neither of you truly owns. yet both have shaped with your hands, your words, and your actions. Finally, you speak. This doesn't have to be the final ride, Sharim. It doesn't have to be over. He looks at you, the weight of your words landing between you like a stone dropped into still water. It's always been about the ride, he replies quietly. Not where it ends, not even where it starts. We're just two riders caught in the wind going where it takes us. The wind picks up again, a gust that makes the moment feel heavier. There's a pause, long and thick, before Sharim slowly dismounts, his boots crunching against the gravel beneath. He looks at you, but it's not the same glance as before. This one is different. You want to know the truth, don't you? His words are more of a statement than a question. You swallow, your throat suddenly dry. You nod. I always did. Sharim's face remains unreadable, but his shoulders tense, and for a moment he seems to struggle with something deep within himself. It's only for a split second, but it's enough to see the cracks in his carefully constructed armor. You don't get it, he mutters under his breath, more to himself than to you. I never wanted to be the one leading the ride. I just needed to show everyone that it was still possible, that the ride still matters. But we're no longer riders, you and I. We're just ghosts, chasing the last echoes of what was once ours. The words sting, but you don't flinch. If that's true, you reply, your voice steady, then let's decide what happens next. Sharim stands still for a moment, processing your words. Finally, he looks at you, his expression unreadable, but his eyes gleam with something like respect. All right, he says, his voice hardening with resolve. You want to ride with me again, then prove it. Ride this night. Ride it for everything we lost. And when you make it to the end, tell me if it was worth it. His challenge hangs in the air, sharp and clear. And just like that, everything changes. The path ahead is no longer about the journey alone. It's about the destination you create together. For the first time in years, the wind feels less like a force against you and more like something to be harnessed. You turn your horse, the reins firm in your hands, and nod. Let's see if we can make it worth it then. And so you ride, together once more, against the storm and into the heart of the empire, each of you chasing the same elusive answer. What does the future hold? For the first time, neither of you cares to find out. You're content just riding. You ride side by side. No words, no tricks, no fire, just the steady, bone-deep rhythm of two horses cutting through the dark like memory through silence. This ride, it's different. It isn't about the message anymore. It's not about towers or flares or the carved metal of a paisa. It's not even about Sharim. It's about the ride itself, the thread that stitched a continent together, the pulse that once kept the empire alive. And now, you're riding to decide whether that heart can still beat. The terrain begins to change. The red earth gives way to softer ground, scrub-dotted and familiar. You're nearing the old threefold divide, where 3 yam routes once split off like fingers of a hand, feeding the Central Empire, the eastern steppes, and the deep desert. Only one of them still exists. The others were cut. Not collapsed. Not abandoned. Cut. Sharim's doing. His riders burned the markers, erased the maps, redirected traffic until even the horses forgot the scent of the path. And yet, you remember. Your horse slows. Instinct. It still knows the trail. So does his. You both pull up at the fork. The crossroads is barely visible now, just a worn dip in the earth, a broken wheel hub, a half-buried nail. And in the center, a signpost, shattered. But you recognize the symbols, barely visible in the wood grain. Yam riders once carved messages into signposts, subtle and silent, never more than needed. The one here says, we passed, we bled, we ride again. You dismount, so does he. You kneel. He doesn't stop you. Together, wordlessly, you start rebuilding the post. Not big, not clean, just upright. You wedge it with stone, bind it with spare leather, use a horseshoe nail to anchor it. Then, without asking, you pull a small blue thread from your pouch. Tie it around the beam. He watches, doesn't protest, doesn't sneer, just nods. It's not enough. No, you say, but it's a start. The stars blink overhead, one by one, like someone lighting signal fires in the sky. You both sit near the post. Not together, not far apart, just near. And slowly, Sharim speaks. I believed in the yam once. His voice is low, barely audible over the creak of night. I believed in it more than the empire, more than my commanders, more than you. Then why burn it, he sighs. Because I thought it died already, thought it had forgotten what it meant to ride. I tried to build something better, faster, cleaner, but it only worked if I burned the old world first. He looks up at the stars. Now I'm not so sure I was right. You both sit in silence for a while. Then Sharim reaches into his coat, pulls out his paisa. It's different now, burned at the edges. The crest has been scratched through, a deliberate scar. He holds it up. What would you do with this? You reach forward, take it, weigh it in your hand, then you press it into the earth beneath the post. No words, just weight and memory. Let it rest. He doesn't stop you. By dawn, you're already riding again, not toward the capital, not toward a command post, just out, back into the world, to find the forgotten places, to light fires where no message has burned in years. You don't ride together now, that's not how this ends, but neither of you rides alone anymore. Across the empire, towers begin to wake, blue fire, braided ribbons, fresh tracks on old roads. Someone paints over Sharim's marks with yam ink. Someone lights a tower that was believed collapsed. Someone, a girl not older than 16, rides into a border village with a scroll that saves 30 people from a raid. Because the road is open again, because the fire caught, because one rider rode far enough, long enough, hard enough to remind the empire what it means to move. You crest the final hill before the steppe. Behind you, the world slowly reshapes. Ahead, the wind and the road, and somewhere, always, someone waiting to hear the message. So you do what you've always done. You lean forward, tap the horse's side, and once again, you ride. The road stretches forward like an unfinished sentence, open, expectant, humming with the weight of whatever comes next. Your horse moves beneath you with the easy rhythm of something that knows, that remembers. You don't guide him. You don't need to, because now, for the first time in a long time, there is no rush. No black sealed scroll pressed against your ribs, no tower waiting in silence, no storm clawing at your back, just distance and memory, and the soft, steady sound of hooves marking time against the earth. You pass through the edge of a forest by midday. The trees here are tall, thin, and whispery. Birches, mostly, their pale bark peeling in long, curled ribbons like old maps forgetting where they led. You spot a stone marker near the base of one tree, barely visible under moss and thyme. You dismount, brush it clean. A courier's name, carved in deep strokes. Island of the fifth flank. Road 9,000 li. Died lighting the seventh flame. You place your palm on the stone, not out of ritual, out of recognition. You've ridden that far and farther. You've lit flames he never saw, but he rode first. And that means something. Further along the path, you find a river crossing. The bridge is long gone, collapsed or claimed by time, but the current is gentle here and the river shallow. You guide your horse in, the water's cold, clean, it fills your boots, numbs your calves. Feels like penance, feels like baptism. On the other side, high grass, flat land, endless sky, and a sound, a whistle, clear and distant. You look up. On the next ridge, a rider waits. You recognize her immediately. Her name is Tussa. She was never fast, but she was always right. The kind of courier who could sniff out a lie faster than a bloodhound. You rode with her once through the salt wind gorge years ago, when half your squad had frostbite and the other half had no idea what they were doing. She spotted a false marker, saved all your lives, and now here she is again, sitting straight back in the saddle, watching. When you reach her, she nods once. Sharim, she asks. Gone, you answer. Dead? No, you say. Worse. She doesn't ask what you mean. She just turns her horse eastward. You riding long? Always. Then let's go. By nightfall, there are 5 of you. Tassa, the mute girl from Split Mouth, a young man with one eye and the sharpest sword you've ever seen. An old courier you don't recognize, but his horse bears insignia from the first wave of Inner Circle messengers. That means something. And you. No one speaks much. No one has to. At the next ridge, you light a fire. Not a signal fire, not a blue flare, just a campfire, crackling, small, warm. The mute girl brews tea with herbs none of you can name. Not the one-eyed man sharpens his blade and hums an old steppe song. Tassa rewrites a codebook on fresh paper, her fingers stained with ink, and the old courier, he just stares into the flames. Eventually he speaks. This feels like the old days. You raise an eyebrow. You rode then? He nods. When the road was truth, before it became leverage. You sip your tea. The fire crackles. It still can be, you say. He looks at you long and slow. Only if riders like you keep riding. You don't sleep much that night. Too many thoughts, too many faces in your mind. Mara, Sharim, the Eye, the towers you lit, the ones you couldn't, the roads ahead. But when dawn comes, you mount your horse again without hesitation. And you're not the only one. That day you reach Stonefeather Post. It was considered dead, burned, sacked, scavenged for wood and nails, and yet someone has rebuilt it. There's a flag, a tower, a man and his daughter tending 2 fresh horses. When he sees your group, he grins wide. We heard the flames, he says. Didn't believe them, until now. You dismount, shake his hand. The yam rides again. His eyes shine. Then we'll ride too. You don't stay long. You can't. Too much to do, too many trails unlit, too many whispers still waiting to be answered. But when you leave, there are 3 more riders than before, and behind you, the tower burns blue, just like the old days, just like forever, just like you never stopped. By dusk, the horizon is nothing but open steppe again. And in the quiet between hoofbeats, a thought rises. Maybe this isn't rebuilding the yam. Maybe it's not reviving anything at all. Maybe it's something new, but still built on the oldest truth. The road is the empire. And as long as it's ridden, it lives. So you ride. No orders, no seals, no message, just presence, just purpose, just the wind in your ears and the world listening. The next ride feels different, not because of the road. The road is still rough, still wild, still scattered with the bones of forgotten markers and half-collapsed mileposts, but something in you has changed. You're not riding to light towers anymore. You're not chasing Sharim or fleeing his shadow. You're riding because this is what riders do. They move through silence. They carry presence. They leave proof that someone still believes the world is worth connecting. Tassa rides ahead this morning, cutting a clean trail through tall grass that brushes your knees. She signals every 100 paces, not because she needs to, just because it's habit. Her hands speak a whole language your mouth hasn't used in years. Clear. Wind shift. Stream ahead. Behind her, the mute girl follows, steady as a shadow. No signals from her, just eyes, always scanning, always knowing more than she lets on. She never speaks, but her presence is so loud it anchors the group. You trail behind with the one-eyed swordsman, whose name is apparently Joel, and whose entire sense of direction is based on the movement of crows. If they're flying east, we go west, he says. Crows always fly away from trouble. You don't question it. The old man from Splitmouth rides last. He hums yam cadences, songs only riders over 60 remember. One about a woman who delivered twins and a scroll on the same day. Another about a horse that died, came back and carried a ghost message. He hums like the stories are true. You don't doubt him. At midday, you stop to rest under a stone arch that once marked Sector Trail 9C, C. Now it's cracked down the middle, the inscription barely legible. To ride is to endure the silence between hearts. Tassa reads it out loud. Then, quietly, I remember this trail. It used to be full of bells. You look at her. She explains, bells tied to tree branches, just string and copper. They chimed when the wind blew. Riders could follow the sound when fog came through. You smile. You think of the towers, the drums, the scent of burning oil. Now bells and fog. The yam was never about one method. It was always about connection. You cross a bridge of bones in the late afternoon. Not literal bones, wooden slats carved to resemble vertebrae. A decorative tradition once common in the eastern ridge routes. The bridge itself is intact, swaying slightly over a shallow canyon. On the far side is a half-collapsed station, marked with char and age, but still standing. You investigate. Inside, a sealed jar of smoked tea, a spare saddle blanket, and a letter. Tassa finds it, unsealed, untouched, written in the blocky, deliberate hand of a courier trained in the last generation. If you're reading this, the wind still listens. We left west, we lit 3 towers, we won't be back. Take the path if you can, but only if you still believe. You do. That night, your fire burns orange, not blue, not coated, just warm. No scouts, no threats, no need for watches. You eat simple food. Tassa tells a story about the time she rode 5 days in total silence, only to deliver a message that turned out to be a marriage proposal. She was furious until the couple invited her to the wedding. Best soup I ever had, she says. Even Joel laughs, the mute girl smiles, the old man hums the wedding march, and for a few rare minutes, feels like peace. In the dark, you find yourself thinking of Sharim again. Not with anger, not with fear, just curiosity. Where did he ride off to? Did he find silence, or is he still listening for hoofbeats that never arrive? Maybe you'll meet him again one day, maybe you won't. But his shadow no longer rides at your heels. You've outpaced it. At dawn, the sky is clear. You saddle up without speaking. You don't need to, because today you ride the Northern Ring, an ancient loop road thought lost to floods and mudslides decades ago. But you saw the markers, you smelled the trail, and if it still exists, then it's time the world remembered it. You nod to the others, they follow, and together as the sun rises and the road unfurls like a ribbon of purpose, you do what you were always meant to do. You ride. Because the message isn't always on paper. Sometimes the message is the rider. Sometimes the message is the movement. Sometimes the message is simply, we're still here. We still believe. We still connect. And the road remembers. The Northern Ring is more legend than route now. Most riders talk about it like a ghost, something that once was, that flickered like lightning across the top of the empire, too fast and too fragile to last. They say it was washed away during the second flood, that the hill stations crumbled, that the weather turned cruel, and the path forgot itself. But legends are like riders. They never truly stop if someone keeps following the signs. And you found the signs. The first one comes at dawn, carved into a tree trunk so old it's become silver gray and hollow. The symbol is almost invisible unless you know to look. 2 interlocking circles, a break in the line, and a notch above. Yam code. Roughly translated, path interrupted, but not lost. You smile. You're in the right place. You ride on. By mid-morning, the trees give way to long, sloping hills. The air here is colder, sharper. Your breath fogs as you speak. Tassa covers her mouth with a faded wool scarf. Joel doesn't stop humming. The mute girl ties blue ribbon around her wrist and rides ahead, scouting. At the crest of a hill, you pause. Below, the skeletal remains of an old staging yard. 6 stables, 3 yurts, a stone well ringed in moss, and, miraculously, a signal mast still standing. It's tilted slightly, leaning like an old man who survived 100 winters and isn't about to kneel for the 101st. But it's there. And atop it, rusted but intact, a yam flag. You dismount, you all do. You walk into the station in silence. Inside one of the yurts, on a wall nearly lost to rot, someone carved a line into the wood. If you find this, ride like we never stopped. And someone else below it scratched a second message. Because we didn't. You spend the rest of the day restoring the mast, reinforcing the base, retying the ropes, polishing the old brass crest at the top until it shines like fire when it catches the sun. The mute girl lights a small blue flare at its base. The smoke climbs upward, curling around the post like a memory being rewritten, and when it clears, the station looks alive again, maybe for the first time in 50 years. That night, more riders arrive. You don't know how they heard, you don't ask, but by firelight, you count 10 new faces. Young, old, tired, hopeful, all carrying something that matters. One of them, the girl with ink-stained hands, approaches you and asks, "Is it true? You rode with Sharim?" You nod once, she nods back. "And you're still riding?" "Always." "Then so will we." She hands you a scroll, unmarked, sealed only with thread. "It's not a message," she says. "It's a map, rebuilt from fragments. We've been working on it." You unroll it slowly. It's rough, sketched in charcoal, pieces still missing, but it's the Northern Ring. All of it. Stations long thought lost, routes that split and rejoined like rivers, notes in the margins, wolves here. Watch for storms. This stream still runs. You feel your throat tighten. This isn't just a trail. It's a resurrection. Tassa studies the map, running her finger along one curve. "I thought this stretch was gone forever." The mute girl taps the page twice. You understand. She's ridden part of it recently. It's not gone. Just quiet, waiting. At dawn, you take the lead. Joel rides beside you, now wearing an old banner as a scarf. Behind you, a chain of couriers stretching along the ridge, quiet as smoke, bright as fire. Some wear yam colors, others wear scraps and silence, but all of them ride with purpose. You descend into the ring. Every hoofbeat wakes the road a little more. Every breath feels like a vow, and on the edge of your hearing, you swear you catch a sound. Not a bird, not the wind, but the faint, rhythmic beat of a tower drum, one you thought was gone, answering yours, welcoming you back. You ride all day. At dusk, you light another tower, then sleep beneath its shadow. You dream of ink-stained maps becoming whole again, of horses running routes that haven't been spoken aloud in a generation, of blue flames racing each other across the skyline, faster than memory, faster than fear, of a road that rides itself into the future. And a single line that echoes through your bones as you wake. We are the message. So you stretch, you rise, and once again, you ride. You ride until the map runs out. Not metaphor, not poetry, just fact. At the edge of a frozen bluff, your horse slows to a halt, snorting clouds into the air. Before you stretches a chasm carved by time, ice-lined, wide enough to swallow 3 wagons side by side. The path ends here. Your breath fogs in the silence. The others arrive behind you one by one. They stop, they see, they wait. Tassa is first to speak. It's not on the map. You nod. That's because no one's mapped beyond this. Jol leans forward in his saddle, peering down into the drop. So this is it? Edge of the Empire? You look again, and you realize, no, this isn't the end. It's the beginning of something else. There are no old towers here. No buried signal flares, no road markers half swallowed by grass. But there's wind, and space, and possibility. You dismount, walk to the edge, kneel, brush frost away from a flat rock. Nothing carved. Just smooth, pale stone, untouched. You draw your knife, the one you haven't used since the ride with Shireen, and you carve. Not deep, just enough. 4 words. Here the road begins. You turn to the others. They say nothing. But their faces, you've seen that look before. It's the expression every courier gets when they realize they've ridden farther than anyone thought possible, and the only thing left to do is keep going. The mute girl points to a narrow ridge that snakes along the canyon wall. It's thin, treacherous, but rideable. At least if you trust your horse more than you trust your eyes. She taps her own chest, volunteers to lead. You nod. She mounts, starts forward. Her horse doesn't falter once. You follow her. Then Tassa, then Joel, then the old man who mutters something like a prayer to the gods of balance and bridles. One by one, you file onto the path, hugging the cliff like a memory clinging to the edge of forgetting. Beneath you, wind, ice, history. Ahead, a blank map. Hours later, you find a flat clearing tucked between crags. No sign anyone's ever stood here before. The wind whips high, echoing off the rocks like a voice that's been waiting for someone to talk to. Tassa lights a small fire. Joel makes tea. The mute girl disappears briefly, returns with snowberries and dry twigs. You pull out the map the ink-stained girl gave you at Stonefeather Post, and you add to it. Just a few lines, but they're yours. And that's what matters. Later that night, you talk about what comes next. You draw in the dirt with sticks and boot heels. You don't make a plan. You don't declare a mission. You trace possibilities. If this ridge holds, Tassa says, we can reach the eastern gorge. If we cross the gorge, Joel adds, we'll find the sea routes. Maybe even the ice couriers. The old man smiles. The ones who used to skate messages across frozen lakes? He chuckles. I thought that was a myth. You shrug. So were we, and that's the quiet truth, isn't it? You were a myth not long ago. The last courier, the last tower, the last message. And now there are riders behind you. Fires ahead, maps being redrawn, not to recover the old world, but to build the next one. At dawn, the wind shifts, blows steady from the east. Clean, cold, sharp, a rider's wind. You pack your gear, tighten your saddles, toss ties a ribbon to the branch of a crooked tree near the clearing. It flutters like a signal. Not a call for help. The yam has passed through here. And where the yam passes, the world takes notice. You mount. No destination, no dispatch. Just forward, because wherever you go, the road becomes. And whatever you carry now isn't a message. It's a movement. One last glance behind you. The cliff, the fire pit, the ribbon, all waiting for the next rider. All proof you were here, all part of the trail. You whisper to your horse. He understands. And with the wind rising at your back, blue sky cracking open above, you ride. The rider from the shadows doesn't stay long. He says his name is Ogun, though whether that's his given name, his last known title, or just what he tells strangers, you don't know. You don't ask. Because in the yam, names are less important than how you ride. And Ogun, he carries the silence of someone who's ridden through storms that had no sky above them. He squats by the fire, warming his gloved hands. The others eye him quietly, and the way couriers always size up anyone who arrives without being announced. Joel watches his horse. Tassa watches the way he moves. Only the mute girl steps forward, kneels beside him, and offers a boiled root. He takes it, nods, eats in 3 silent bites. Then he says, "If you're planning to cross the gorge by sunrise, you'll need to follow the Ice Riders trail." You frown. "The Ice Riders vanished a decade ago." Glances up. "No, you just stopped hearing them." And with that, he draws a crude map in the ash beside the fire. A spiral path. A descent down the gorge's side, then across a frozen shelf that clings to the interior wall like a spider web of ancient cold. "Only walk it at night," he says. The sun softens the bridge. One wrong foot and the whole face might fall. Tassa whistles low through her teeth. "That's not a trail, that's a wish." Ogun smiles, teeth white in the firelight. "Then wish well." The next night, you follow him, single file. No one speaks. Even the horses step lightly. The ridge path narrows to the width of a saddle girth, then vanishes completely. You dismount. Lead the horses with taut reins and slow steps. Beneath you, black ice and moonlight. Above you, stars. Every few paces, Ogun pauses, presses his palm to the cliff wall, listening. The ice tells you things, he murmurs, mostly to himself. It remembers who crossed it last. You don't ask what it's saying tonight, because part of you already knows. Halfway across the gorge, something glows, a soft shimmer under the ice. Pale blue, then red, then blue again. You kneel, touch the ground. It pulses beneath your fingertips, old Yam signal code etched into the veins of the ice itself. You whisper the words aloud, "Road not lost, only cold." You smile. Even here, forgotten, buried under frost and silence, someone left a message, and it made it to you. By dawn, you reach the other side. Frost clings to your eyebrows, your horse's flanks are steaming. Joel is humming something that might be a victory song, or just delirium. The mute girl's cheeks are raw from wind, Tassa's scarf is frozen stiff, and Ogun, he looks like he just stepped out of a dream. "Now," he says, "you're ready." You frown. "For what?" he points. Ahead across the blinding white plain, a line of dark flags flutter in the early light. Not Yam banners, not war signals, just tall, thin poles, each topped with a shard of mirror, and far beyond them, a tower, wide, low, squat, built from stone so black it reflects no light. "That's where the rest of the messages are," Ogun says. "What do you mean?" Tassa asks. "I mean the ones that never got delivered, the ones the Yam left behind, the Empire's forgotten truths." He turns to you. "And you're going to deliver them." The tower looms larger as you ride. It's not abandoned. You feel that immediately. It hums with something deep, something restless. No guards, no signs, no welcoming torch, just an open door. You dismount, step inside, and suddenly the silence hits. It's thick, electric. Inside, rows of scrolls, hundreds, maybe thousands, sealed in wax and string, some cracked, others pristine, all labeled in the unmistakable shorthand of the highest Yam clearance. They're real. Messages the world was never meant to read. You step closer. Pick one up. It's addressed to a governor who died 2 empires ago. Another, a letter warning of a flood that happened 4 years too late. Another, a plea for peace, written in 10 languages. Joel whistles low. "Why are they here?" You whisper, "Because someone didn't want them seen." Tassa frowns. "What now?" You know, the truth is simple. We ride. Not to deliver them all, not at once, but to wake them, to carry what matters forward. To remind the world that messages don't vanish just because they're hidden, and that the Yam never forgot. You each take one scroll, just one. You tie it carefully, secure it, feel its weight. Ogun stands at the door as you mount again. He doesn't follow. He's done his part. Now it's yours. The wind rises again, cold, clean, purposeful. You feel it at your back, pushing, calling, promising more road than you can possibly imagine. So you ride, and the scrolls ride with you. And the world waits, not for a war, not for a storm, but for the truth, carried not in conquest, but in hooves and hearts. The scroll at your side doesn't feel like a message. It feels like a promise. Not the kind whispered in candlelight or carved into stone, but the kind carried in silence over frozen ridges and forgotten paths, by riders who understand that some truths are too important to bury. You don't know what's written inside it. You don't need to, because the moment you touched it, you knew. This one isn't just a delivery. It's a reckoning. The land unfolds in a hush. Gone are the cliffs and echoing gorges. Now the world is wide, cold, and open. An endless stretch of frost-bitten plain beneath a sky so pale it seems made of paper. No roads here, no markers. But every hoofbeat writes the map anew. Your horse doesn't hesitate. Neither do you. Behind you, Tassa, Joel, the mute girl, all carrying scrolls of their own, all riding like the road means something again. By noon, the wind picks up, not angry, inquisitive. It tugs at your coat, your satchel, your thoughts. Like it's trying to read the scroll through your ribs. You speak softly, more to yourself than to it. Not yet. The wind listens, moves on. In the afternoon, a flock of starlings takes flight beside you, sudden and synchronized, rising from the grass like a word finally spoken. You follow their arc to a low ridge, and there in the distance you see it, a watchtower, or what's left of one. Half collapsed, roof gone, but the base is intact, a yam construction. You'd recognize that shape anywhere, square stone foundation, tilted flagpole, reinforced arch. You ride closer, and when you arrive, you find evidence, a cold fire pit, horsehair caught in the splinters of a rail, a symbol etched into the stone in faded charcoal. One rider passed where, and beneath it a second mark. Another followed, a relay, long dead, still speaking. You dismount, press your palm to the stone. It's warm. Someone passed through recently, not a courier, not a scout. A witness. Tassa runs her fingers over the markings. Think they carried what we carry? You shake your head. I think they expected us. Joel, standing nearby, whistles low. Or feared us. The mute girl doesn't comment, but she does walk to the tower's base, kneel, and leave behind something of her own. A strip of blue cloth, knotted tight. She hangs it on the broken beam where the flag once flew. For the next rider. For the next echo. You don't camp. There's no time. Tonight you'll ride until the wind forgets your name, until the scrolls at your sides vibrate with the urgency of miles past, of truths dragged from the edges of memory. The moon rises pale and full. You ride beneath it in silence, and when the stars begin to shiver in the cold air, you see it, a village. Tents, smoke, movement, faint music. The kind of place where the old yam might have stopped for a night. But now, you don't pass through to rest. You pass through to deliver. At the edge of the camp, a woman steps forward. Wrapped in wool, her eyes sharp with the kind of quiet that knows history when it sees it. Are you from the road? She asks. You don't answer with words. You reach into your coat, pull the scroll, hold it out. She takes it. No questions, no seal checked. She simply holds it like it's something she's been waiting for her entire life. Then she whispers, "It's about time," and disappears into the tent behind her. You don't stay to find out what's inside. Sigh. That's not your part. You've done what riders do. You carried what others buried. You reminded the world that the yam still moves. And as you mount again, the others following without a word, you realize something new. You're not just reviving the past. You're creating the next road, a path for riders who won't need pies or towers. Just the will to ride, the courage to carry truth, and the silence to let it speak when it arrives. So you ride. Again, still, always. The stars lean in closer tonight. You can feel them, bright, silent witnesses above the frost-bitten plain, watching your little band of riders carve a line through the dark. They don't blink, they don't judge, but they see you. And you ride differently now, not faster, not harder, but with a kind of quiet certainty you didn't have before. Because for the first time in this long, endless road, the world is answering back. Delivered forgotten messages, unburied stories that someone somewhere once tried to silence. And now, you feel it behind you. Not a storm, not a shadow, but momentum. Something building, waking, spreading. In the early hours before sunrise, you reach the high salt plain, a flat silver sheet of earth stretching farther than the eye can see. Once, this was one of the most sacred relay crossings in the old yam, used only for the fastest, most crucial messages. Now, it's just quiet, empty. At least it looks that way. You dismount near the old signal stone, a slab of dark basalt cracked in half, etched with yam code that only glows faintly in moonlight. You kneel, trace your fingers along the lines, breathe, and wait. The others stay silent behind you. Even Joel, who normally can't stand still for more than a minute, says nothing. Then, a pulse. Low, subtle, from the stone itself. It remembers. You press your palm flat to the surface and it answers with vibration. 4 beats, then 1. An old code, one few ever learned. All riders, new order, route restored. You sit back on your heels. It's not a message to you, it's a message through you. Behind you, Tassa's voice breaks the still. They're coming, aren't they? You nod. Not with dread, with recognition. The ones who still ride, the ones we couldn't reach before. The mute girl steps forward and places her own palm on the stone. The beat continues. Life, another message pulses outward, a call. And in the distance, far across the plain, you see them. Lights, one by one. Tiny blue flares dotting the horizon coming toward you. By sunrise, there are dozens. Riders arriving from every direction, young, old, mounted on shaggy hill ponies, desert runners, frost-coated mares, some in full yam gear, others wrapped in rags and resolve. But they come because they heard, because they felt it, because somewhere, somehow, the road reached them. You don't speak to them all. You don't have to. You see it in their eyes. The same fire, the same exhaustion, the same hard-earned hope that you carry in your own bones. Some of them carry scrolls. Some of them carry nothing. And yet they all bring something. A song, a route, a warning, a flame. Tassa steps beside you, eyes wide. We didn't bring the road back. You nod slowly. It never left. Someone begins to draw new lines in the salt with a stick, mapping new routes, new stations, new names. The mute girl adds a symbol for fire. Joel adds the sign for open ride. A boy not older than 10 draws a perfect paisa knot from memory. This isn't the old yam returning. This is what comes after, what rises when riders choose to carry each other, when silence is replaced by motion. And the message? It's no longer in the scrolls, it's in the faces, the steps, the flame that jumps from camp to camp faster than any horse. At the center of it all, you light one final fire. No blue flare, no signal oil, just kindling, heat and purpose. You step back and let it burn, and across the plain they see it. They all see it, and they ride. The plain glows with morning light, soft and pale, casting long shadows behind every rider, every hoof print, every rising curl of smoke. The fire you lit still burns at the center, no longer a signal, no longer a warning, just a beacon. No orders are given, no ranks called, and yet the camp moves like it's been doing this for centuries, because it has. In another form, another time, another name. They build new posts, rough and temporary, sure, but aligned to the winds, marked with stone and bone and intention. A girl teaches a boy how to signal with mirrors. An old man, blind in one eye, carves yam code into a bark tablet with hands that shake, but never miss a stroke. You see it, you feel it. The road isn't just reviving, it's transforming. You walk the edge of the gathering as the sun climbs higher. Faces turn toward you, some with smiles, some with awe, some with the quiet recognition that says, I've seen you before, even if we've never met. They know who you are. Not your name, not your rank, but your ride. They felt it on the wind, heard it in the drums of towers long cold, seen it in the sky when the blue fire returned. You were the first to carry it again, and now you're not alone. Tassa meets you near the base of the signal stone. She's dusty, smiling, alive in a way you haven't seen since the earliest days of this journey. It's not just us anymore. You nod. It never was. We just remembered first. Joel appears beside her, stretching his arms with a groan. So what now? Do we rebuild the whole yam? Start marking paths, relinking stations, drawing up maps? He says it with half a smirk, but there's real weight behind it. You consider his words. You look around, at the riders, at the makeshift posts, at the children learning the old knots, and you shake your head. No, we don't rebuild the yam. Then what? You gesture to the road behind you and ahead. We ride. And the road becomes whatever we need it to be. Tassa grins. Joel shrugs. The mute girl signs one simple word, yes. Before you leave, you visit the campfire one last time. Not to stoke it, not to tend it, to let it burn down. Because fire doesn't last forever, and it doesn't need to. Not when its purpose is carried forward. You saddle up. The horse is ready before you are. It always is. You turn once to see them, your companions, your echoes, your future, scattered like stars across the salt plain. Some stay to build, some set out toward distant ridges, some vanish into shadowed valleys, but all of them are riding. Because now they remember. The road isn't a place, it's a promise. You guide your horse toward the horizon. The sky ahead is wide, unwritten. The map in your satchel is half complete. The scrolls are gone. Delivered, read, forgotten, remembered. And in their place, only wind and motion and the steady rhythm of hooves. The world has changed, not because of force, not because of power, because a message was carried, again and again, by riders who refuse to stop, by roads that refuse to die, by you. You breathe in deep and whisper, not to the horse, not to yourself, but to the trail. We ride. And the trail answers, not with words, but with open land, soft wind, and space for one more hoofprint, then another. Then thousands more after you. The story is no longer about you now. It's about everyone who comes next. Everyone who finds a scroll or a flame or a name etched into stone and chooses to keep going. The road is open. The riders are ready. The message has become a movement, and the wind is waiting. So once more, you ride.